probably fell out my pocket. Prayerfully, it fell out my pocket while I was sitting in the vehicle. Other than that, I have no clue who that thing would be. So I might have to roll out and find that real quick. Other than that, though, everything else seems to be all right. Trying to get our setup all the way there that everybody might be able to see me from all angles. We think that I think we got this going together fine. Let's see. Yeah, but welcome everybody. Thank you. We're just getting one more platform up and going, and then go ahead and get started. Shalom, come on in. The water is fine. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think we're almost there. All praises. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back to the vehicle real quick. I got the whiteboard. And thank you for those who reached out and reminded me. I got the whiteboard. I had stuff in my pocket as far as my marker. And this might be disobedience on my end. Oh, okay. I see a marker inside here. I'll place it in the bag. I'm about to say, Holy Spirit told me to put it in the bag. I should have listened to it. We got it in the bag. All praises. I still have to go get something to use as an eraser, but at least we got that together. All right. So we can start off the way we're supposed to. All praises to the Most High. And my apologies if you're on YouTube, as we talked about before, in order for me to set this up, for me to be able to see your comments. When it comes to the whiteboard, everything on the whiteboard is going to be in reverse. So you guys are going to have to make sure that you are ready for that in the mirror image and stuff, or take a screenshot when you're finished, and then be able to flip it around just to make that known. But everybody else, I think we should be fine. Obviously, those on the podcast won't be able to see, but they should be able to be all right. I think that's about as great as we're gonna get. Welcome. Oh, you know what? Sorry. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab something to use as an eraser, and then we should be able to return and get started. All praises. I think everybody's up and going. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me all right. Just don't make the show. Well, anyways, I'll be back in a second, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Alrighty. I think that's it. I think we're ready to go. I appreciate you. Hopefully all is well. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect. Today's message, Abba. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Buenas noches, mi nombre es Kofi, Ni hao, namaste, Sayana Kitsuya, Paya, Asi, Alik, Juan, Kipsa, Kimsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Bonsoir, Kudet, Abarigani, Akuaba, Madasi, Represent, Jumbo, Bimini Kofi, in the Frog Katana Wewe, Bokuto, Bokuta, greetings, grand rising, salutations, Bakwatav, Ana Aik, Khalid Service of Christ, Tada, Yechal Sha'al, Achaba, Yechal Sha'al, Achaba, Yechaba, Tada, Participate, Yechal Sha'al, Mashallah, Shalom, peace, everybody, I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, being Voiceless for speaking and Unspoken. I very much so appreciate you. And I thank you all for being with us today as we continue in our journey, we continue in this Revelation series. Tomorrow, we'll be back in front of you for the live session. Tomorrow and Friday will be Q&A session, so we'll have it open up for everybody. And pray for everybody can be with us. We thank you for joining us on the live session, whether you're joining us live, you're watching later on, you're watching in different countries, different languages even, as this might possibly pop up in different ways for you all. So we are thankful and we're grateful for another opportunity to be before you, to be before the Most High. We give our honor and praise once again to Him. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife and honor the honor who was right to sit and be honored. To the ministers, to our moderators, SOC, Bodyguard, everybody, we are delighted to be in front of your presence again. And thank you so much. And thank you for your prayers and your concerns. One quick announcement, not unimportant, but just quick. We made this announcement last night. We're just making it again. We have not, since the decision was made to leave SOC by some, we have not been in touch outside of a couple things here and there, but that was still a long time ago with Apostle Dr. Tamar. That being said, she did have a death in the family. One of her sons, I have not been able to get any more information on this, but one of her sons has passed away. And so I say this with all sincerity. And I'm going to look over here because it'll probably be the easiest place for them to see the recording if somebody wants to see it. We are saddened to hear the news. We're praying for you. We added you to the prayer list. I received information from somebody who was part of the group with you, and they said they haven't heard from you for a while, but they heard from your sister. So we give our prayers up. We don't have a number to be able to reach out to anybody, but we give our prayers and we make it known to everybody at SOC. And once again, we never really, on our end, forgiveness and all that stuff has been extended, and we hope that you're doing what the Most High calls you to do. That's always our goal, and we've never had any issue as far as saying that you have the gift, you have the calling. But this is something that even runs deeper sometimes. It runs deeper than that, which is the loss of the loved one. So we just want to say outright, that we're praying for you, we love you. We're here to supply whatever help we can, such as always, as what we always did, and as you always did as much as you can, such as you have, and such as we have, we give unto each other. So if anybody hears from them, sees something, let it be known to them that as a community, we still accept in this community, of course, and that we send our love and prayers, and hopefully all is well. All right, and I'll leave it at that. Anything else, if I get anything behind the scenes that's necessary for everybody to know, I will let you guys know. We'll lift up them up in prayer again tomorrow for our Thursday Rising Prayer. And if you'd like to show up to do that as a group, we invite you to do that as always. All right, so we'll say that. Thank you so much. Keep them lifted up in prayer. Keep each other lifted up. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to go into this message. Tomorrow we got a lot going on in the meeting. Main thing that I'd like for you guys to hold in the back of your minds is Minister Staff. We have a meeting tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. New York City time, but probably like 7:15-ish. I said 7:30, but we probably make it 7:15-ish New York City time. We'll try to have a meeting tomorrow for everybody who's part of SOC. A lot of stuff is going to be going on. People talking about stuff for Passover, but also just talking about things coming up in certain dates and trying to get things more handled down and making sure that if there's anything that persons need to hear. And also, it's going to serve, to be honest, as kind of a brain dump. All right, I just need to be able to dump some stuff out of my mind and say, hey, these are assignments and the things that need to happen. Can somebody do these things, or can somebody, even if it's once a day, one day or 1 week or something here or there, can somebody be dedicated, even if it's just something as simple as holding me accountable to make sure this has to be done, this has to be done, and give me money, or if somebody can take a little bit of stuff off of myself and other armor, or off of myself and ministerial staff, or even just take a little bit of stuff off the plate of some others at SOC who might be trying to do a little too much themselves. So we'll have that meeting tonight. But thank you everybody for being on. We're gonna get ready to get started. Can everybody see me and hear me okay? Yes, no, maybe so? I know we got a lot of traffic where I am, but can everybody see and hear me all right? Yes, no, maybe so? Before we get ready to get started? Yeah? Okay. Everybody see and hear me all right? Hey, Grand Rising to all. All righty. And how's everybody doing once again? We're going to say shalom to everybody, and then we're going to jump right in. We got our whiteboard, got the marker, we got our makeshift eraser, which is nothing but napkins. All praises. We're going to get ready to go ahead and get clean hands. We're going to say our Bible pledge and jump right in. As I'm doing so, if you're able, we ask it only as you are able. If you are able to, if you can rise to your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, or however you are able to reverence the word of Yahweh, we thank you for doing so in advance. Thank you so much for being on with us. We get ready to say our Bible pledge. And let's say shalom and peace, everybody, to jump right in. How's everybody doing? How you doing? Sister Greta, Mother Alton, Sister Carla, Sister Beck, Calvin, Sister Jennifer, I keep that with us. Sister Valerie. I'm not sure, Sister Valerie. There's a Valerie that I became Facebook friend with. I'm not sure if it was you or somebody else. But whoever it was, welcome to the family. Prayerfully we'll be able to invite you into the SUC group on Facebook, whoever it was, we'll get you in there. And we're catching up on some Patreon stuff as well, too. So you guys hang in for that stuff. But how's everybody doing? How you doing, Brother Cole? Minister Morrell, Jay College, Roger Woods, Burks. Okay, how you doing? Itazuke? Hopefully I'm saying that right. We're somewhere in the ballpark. Itazuke Air Base, how you doing? Moss Plenty, Mo, just here for the El Elefante, Tailor Made. And if I miss anybody on any platforms, charges to my head, not to my heart. We're grateful and thankful to have you guys on with us again. So we appreciate you, Sister Tabitha. Thank you for any gifts, likes, shares, subscriptions, hitting the notification tab, letting persons know that we're on, sharing this on different platforms. If you're coming over from different platforms that you're used to seeing us on, whatever the case might be. Also, thank you for donations, including, yes, even money, financially, persons who are helping us out to put the links on different places on land. By the way, those in Georgia, we are locked down on that date for the 21st. So we are going to see you guys on the 21st. Trying to figure out the North Carolina thing, if that's a possibility. But we are going to lock down for the 21st. If we don't see everybody, we will be coming through North Carolina pretty soon. If we don't see everybody, we'll try to see you guys on the way back. But we're thankful and grateful. I'm doing double OG, triple OG, and praying for you as always. So make sure I got the seasons have changed. I got the Apostle Paul 19s back. Take me off from a holy ground. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and get that. All right, God praises. Thank you, everybody. Let's go ahead and say our Bible pledge, and we shall jump right in. Bible pledge goes as follows. You can just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahweh is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yechavach. Amen. When Yechavashim, his name is authority, let it be done unto us. You may be seated. We'll go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High. Yeah? How you doing, Sister Shirley? And how you doing, Sister Shirley? And to the whole family. How you doing? Not sure. Chucky, I'm not sure EOS or ES. Welcome to being part of the community. So, and by the way, hashtag We Be the Nation. If you don't, if we're working on what we're going to do with these and how to set these out. Some of the babies going to be getting these soon, and some of you been waiting on the calendar and stuff. You're going to get a little bit of stuff with that too. For your families. But we thank everybody. We appreciate you. We honor you, and we're going to continue where we left off. So yesterday we talked about Revelation, and we focused in on Revelation 13 verses 11 through 18, which is pertaining to the second beast. Right? When we talk about Revelation 12 and 13, we have the Satan, and then we have the people, the water, and then we have his people, the water, created government. And then the government has a second government, or a second beast, that this beast uses a false version of the word, a falsified version of the word, a version of the word that has become systematic and systemic, and is systemic, and has caused a whole bunch of nonsense and nuisance and headache and mismanagement and misrepresentation of the word. So we learned the number of a name, right? Which we're going to start with again today. We ended with this yesterday, but I didn't have the whiteboard with me, and it's important that you catch this. By the way, for those who are taking Hebrew class, we're going to do a separate video of this again, kind of repeating. This part. Matter of fact, it might just end up being the same. I might just clip the same thing and show it to you guys again. But it's important that you catch this part and that you get this. This is a part of what's going on. This is a part of why we need to know culture, characters, thought process, language, original things, eschatology, what these heads of the beast are. Remember, it's the same beast with different heads. You can have a different figurehead. You can have a different president, but you're still the same bird, right? You can have a different person who is supposed to be the face of a nation, but it's still going to be the same nation. You can have a person who's the face of evil, a different face on it, but it's still evil. You can have a different face on righteousness, but it still should be righteousness, right? So if we comprehend what this stuff is going on and what's being said and what's being done, we get to a whole nother level, right? And what's happened, as we get deeper into this, what's happened is there's a cover-up. Because once you know the name, and in Hebrew, the word name also means authority. And is it I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Coteciel, Coteciel. Please forgive me. How you doing? Energetic flow. So if I know the name of something and I know what it is, then it also represents authority. In Hebrew, the word Sham, or modern Hebrew, you would say Shem. Right, but in the Sephardic and in the original pronunciation, we would say Sham. Sham means authority, which also means name. Right? So if I know what this authority is, and this cover-up of what we're actually dealing with the second beast is no longer covered, the veil shall be lifted. Yes, I do. I believe in the entirety of it, and if you're coming today to be able to say, I'm going to dig through this and dig through that, you might want to wait, because today's not a Q&A day. I got a lot of bit of information and a little bit of time. Right? But you are welcome to stay if you like. And I see you. Okay, hi, Starboy, how you doing? And you said the Ankh is a representation of rebellion. Okay, not in this original form, but yeah, there's a lot of persons that have turned the Ankh into whatever they want it to be. I like to go back to the original stuff, and if I wear, say, do anything, that I like to be able to make sure that it at least represents the culture that it's for and what it's supposed to be, right? So, do with that whatever you will. I know that the word, if used properly, will not just cause rebellion, it will cause separation, right? So while some are trying to make sure that they take a system and crumble it, the system will crumble itself. I'm trying to make sure persons are going to be separate from the crumbling system. We're coming to a system that no matter how many persons have tried to take it out, it still remains. That's right. Shem is authority. That's right. Name means authority. Right? So reality of what the stuff is, as you're coming in here, I just need you to know that. Well, once again, on all the platforms, I believe, matter of fact, I know over here, you guys are going to see this backwards, and the only way that I can make sure you see it forwards is if I were not to be able to see your comments. I've asked in the past if you guys would prefer that you guys just take a screenshot and can flip it on your own. If you guys are okay with that, and I've been told that over here. So with that being said, over here and over here, you guys should see fine. Everywhere else, you guys should be able to be all right as you can be with the setup we have. But I'm just going to test this real quick. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Hopefully you got my video, and my apologies. Right? But in the midst of the video, I think you see I think we might have a conclusion already for what we need to talk about. But I will try to reach out ASAP. Let's see. So I'm going to just do this real quick, make sure y'all can see. You guys tell me if you can see. Just make sure. All right. Can everybody see this? All right. Once again over here, I know you're gonna see it in reverse. Everybody else, still, can you see it? All right. Looks like you should be able to see it. All right. Okay. Once again, if you're over here on YouTube, you're gonna take a screenshot of all the stuff you put on the board. So you just flip it around. It'll work for you. If you're not able to take a screenshot right now, feel free. It's recorded, so just feel free to go and look at it later and bring it back up. All right. All right. So this is what we're going to do. Feel free to take whatever screenshots you like. Right. And once again, if you're part of the Hebrew characters class, we'll probably literally just upload exactly what I'm doing. Because this is the exact way I would teach it in class. So those of you who take class, you get or aren't taking the class, you're seeing a little bit of some of the stuff that there's a benefit to taking some of the classes that we have at SOC University if you're able to. If you're able to, we put a lot of stuff out in public, of course. Oh, so but if you're able to, but so if I may, I want to go back into this 666, which we talked about yesterday. 666. When you know the culture, you know what's going on. If you recall, in Revelation 13, it tells us that there's going to be a mark that'll be used, right, for a whole bunch of stuff, including even, and it'll be the mark of the beast, not to be confused with the mark of those who were sealed, with the seal on our forehead, right? Those persons in Revelation chapter 7 who are made to be Israel, and then anybody who's grafted in, you'll be protected because you are with those who are sealed, right? So when we're talking about somebody different, it even tells us the plagues that we went over, the 7 trumpets that we went over, I believe, please forgive me, I think we're about Revelation chapter 8 through 10, with the 7 trumpets to sound, right? And in those 7 trumpets, we were told that we would be separated from the plagues because we are already sealed in our foreheads, right? Talking about the word would be in our forehead, the word even to be written upon the tablets of our hearts. But it tells us that there are those in Revelation 13 who the second beast, right, who is the beast who looks like it has stuff that's solid, right, and even looks to a certain degree to be like the lamb, but it speaks and it sounds like the dragon, the serpent, the devil, who was mentioned in Revelation chapter 12. You guys recall it, right? And it tells us that these persons will have a mark, not just only in their forehead, but also in their hand. And it says those who are not separate, those who are not separated, and even the remnant that's still in the earth realm, in the system, they're going to have to deal with certain things where this second beast who is trying to uplift all this government, all these governments, and all these things that you consider to be patriarchal and patriot, you know, you are patriots and you are chauvinistic, and I'm not talking about male chauvinism, I'm talking about the original definition of chauvinism. All these things that are systemic, they will come at you, they will be all over you, they'll be all around you, right? And thank you for the love and how you doing, Sister Judith. And so we see all these things happening, all these things coming before us, right? So we talked about that it tells us that there is a mark, a number, and a name. So if you see the mark, if you see the number, if you see this name, they are all synonymous. They are all the same thing. They all represent the same thing. If anybody has this in their forehead or their hand, the right hand, meaning the hand of power, right? So your power's being taken away, or even if it's in the head, the heads of your organization, the head of your communities, the heads of your corporations, etc. If they're going to be successful in the beast system, even though it'll only be temporary, but if they're going to have any success, the only way that they're not going to be destroyed by the Satan and his satanic minions and the satanic system, right, is that they have to be sealed. They have to say, we have signed up for, we are in covenant ultimately with the devil, and even those who work under them, your power only comes through what those persons tell you to do. And this number of a name, we actually know. And by the way, can I put this up here as well? I just want to make this clear as well. This is not only for this is not only a theory. It's not only like, oh, you Hebrew Israelites, this and that, or this is some black guy trying to change it, or this is some heathen, or this is some, no. It's not just a theory that I hold. This is not just something that a couple of persons say. This is something that even persons that don't believe what I believe tell you, that even if they believe it to be mythical, even if they believe it to just be something that is not supposed to be as literal as what I'm telling you. And when I say literal, I don't mean like literally everybody got to have something put in their head, even though it could be, I don't know. Right? Ultimately, I don't believe that to be the case, but that doesn't mean that I have all the knowledge of it. That being said, what I'm about to tell you and teach you It's something that even an atheist would say that, hey, if you believe in the Bible, this is what they mean. Okay? So this is something you can look up for yourself. We always invite you to study to show thyself approved, bring it before Elohim, that you might be able to work it out, that you might be a workman, you know, you need not be ashamed, and you can rightly divide the word of truth. You can see for yourself, is it true or is it not? And you can go through a proper prison culturally and accurately of what the people who wrote this stuff meant. Okay? So before we dig deep into whom we're talking about and why it's important that we know who this is, so if we know the number of this name, if we know the number of the name, we know the number or the numerology or the mathematical equation that we should be looking for, the equation, what's going to happen, what's going to manifest from this authority, from this name. Everything that we're dealing with is going to be authorized, and we can look at a particular person to tell us what's happening, not just only what happened a long time ago, but look at the similarities, just as in the days of Noah, for example, it will be in the last days. So if you want to know some things, start making some comparisons to the days of Noah and see if you're seeing some things that are very similar today, right? We're having the same conversation, right? Same type of conversation or same kind of context if we're talking about this name. So, as I said yesterday, whatever this name is, there's two numbers that this name should actually equate to. And if you're not aware of it, culturally speaking, right, characters have numbers attached, right? So, for example, my name is Kofi. If I go to the original name, it is Kwavae. Kwavae, excuse me, has three characters. Quof, Vesh, sorry, I'm going into the other thing. Quof, Vav, and Ayin, right? Quof is the number 100, Vav is the number 6, and Ayin is the number 70. You put that together, the number of my name is 176. So if you were in Hebrew culture, right, and in any culture really that you have characters attached that have numbers with them, but in our culture, if I ever come across a word that adds up to 176, I know without a shadow of a doubt it has something to do with my authority, my name, and I should probably look at it in something that goes with it, because there's going to be some kind of strong pull and influence. Okay, so whatever the number of this name is, now this number is not 3 6s. Right, but there's two, right? It's 600, 6. That means it's 666. So those of you who believe in 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, 6 protons, by the way, no such thing as a neutron. Right, that's a theory. One person's talking about this being a theory. A neutron, a neutrino, all of this theoretical. Nobody's ever seen it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, because somebody said, no, we learned that in school. When they were having bombs explode, they were isolating protons and isolating electrons. And this is what the theory, and some of you still believe this theory, but this is what the theory has always been. There can be nothing that explodes, right, and doesn't turn into energy, right? Or put it like this: mass and energy always have to exist. They can't go anywhere. Either mass will turn into energy, or energy will turn into mass. In other words, if you make a rock explode, and you were to explode it to where you couldn't see the rock anymore, they say that no, you can't say the rock disappeared, because the energy, right, the rock now has become energy. It still exists, even if you can't see it, even if you can't necessarily feel it without and measure it without some kind of metric meter, right? You have to be able to say that it turned into energy. The problem with this is, though, is that they were isolating protons and electrons. And as they were isolating these protons and electrons, they started looking for the energy and they couldn't find it. Which means that this thing that we've been taught, that protons, or that theory that mass always turns into energy, is a lie. Or energy always has to become mass, therefore probably is a lie as well. So what happens is you have a group of youngsters, I believe they were all Italian, right, ages ranging from like 16 and 25, 5 of them total, and they came together and they came up with a theory that became acceptable, right? And the theory was, well, what if the energy cannot be found because it's gone to a neutral place? So since the energy cannot be found, it comes from a neutral place, right? They said, okay, well then there's neutrons. The problem with this is, though, they could not prove it And even the time some of them even disappeared, one of them was found later on in Russia, where the Russians were paying him during the Cold War and everything to work for them, and he was trying to prove the existence of neutrons, but nobody ever proved it. Eventually, they said, well, what if there's this thing called neutrinos? And then, and long story short, they went through a whole long experiment trying to prove neutrinos, but they found that the neutrinos don't move the way they thought they would. Therefore, their theory of what neutrinos are doesn't exist. They thought the neutrinos would prove that neutrons were real, but it doesn't exist. So it's a theory that nobody can prove. It's been disproved by they're trying to prove it. But there are some of us who still believe this. Now, the only reason I bring this up is because there's some persons who hear 666 and they will tell you, oh, well, that's them being afraid of you. And don't be afraid of the number 666. It's just talking about who you are, right? A lot of Afrocentric circles, that's something that is really extended as well. Yeah, but there's no such thing as neutrons, so how can it be 666? But that being said, this number that we're looking for in Hebrew is not 3 sixes, because that would just be up to 18. It tells us this number, when we put the characters together, needs to be 600, 3 score, and 6, 666. And then in the Greek, there's confusion, because if somebody takes this and when the Bible started getting written in Greek, they started saying this number is now 616. Right? Because they knew what was going on. So then they started saying, well, the number is 616. The number is technically both, although originally it's 666, because it was originally written in Hebrew. But for those who want to make the argument of 616, the number of the name that we have equates in both cultures, in both the alphabet and the alphabet. The alphabet is the Hebrew, and the alphabet is the Greek. And both the Hebrew and the Greek, it gets us 600. In the Hebrew, it gets us 666. In the Greek, this name gets us 616. Now I'm going to write it out for you. How you doing, Brother Brandon? Now we're going to write it out and show you, culturally speaking, what's going on. Because if you recall in Revelation chapter 13, verse 18, the last verse before it mentions it, it tells us that this is wisdom. Those who are wise, those who know this, those who can write this out, those who know the culture, those who speak the language, you are in a position to be in a wise place where others are not in the position that you are, because they do not have the tools to be able to do what you're about to see happen, right? So we are in a wise place and in a wise position, right? Because we have an answer, because we have culture and we know the number of the name. And once we find out the number of the name, now we can study on why it's important to see what's going on in the operation of this number of the name. Right now we can see why it's incredibly important and incredibly necessary to know culture, to know etymology, to know numerology, etc., etc. Right now we know why it's important. I see you. And how you doing, Sister Carla? Once again, if you're over here, I apologize. You're going to have to see it backwards. Take a screenshot and try to reverse it. But you should get the point. Right? Am I? Okay. So, and, so we'll go ahead and get into this. So everybody ready? So we're going to talk about the number of the name. What is 600, 3 score, and 6? What does it actually mean? It's important. Everybody's telling us all these different things, and everybody's giving you all these different theories. What about the truth, though? Do you deserve the truth? Do you think you deserve truth? I think you do. So let's give you the truth. And my handwriting is a little trash right now, but it is what it is. But you should get the point. Hold on 1 second. My handwriting is trash, but I can do a little better than that first. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Almost finished. Everything through. I got it where you can see it. It makes sense. And when you guys see it, right, it's going to help you. It's going to make sense now. And so when somebody else tells you what this means and this number means, da, da, they won't be able to do that to you anymore because you're going to have this for yourself. Right? It's going to block you. It's going to help you. Now I'm going right to left. So you have to think right to left. All right? Okay, here we go. Now remember I told you there's something called the alphabet, if you're not aware. Right, there's something called the alphabet. Alphabet, which is basically we would originally say the alphabet in the original pronunciation, but there's something called the alphabet, and there's something called the alphabet. Now the alphabet you're familiar with, but the alphabet is not actually English. The alphabet is Greek. Right? I put it in some of the English ways of writing the characters so you would know what I'm saying. But the alphabet is Hebrew. The alphabet, it came before the alphabet. The alphabet is Hebrew. The alphabet, that's actually Greek. And so there's a number of a name. And the name is Nevan Asad. Now, if you don't know what that means, Nevan Asad translates ultimately to Nevan Asad translates ultimately to Nero, Caesar. Nero and Caesar. The name, this authority, right? The number of the authority, the number of the name, translates to Nero, Caesar, or Nero, Caesar. Now, just in case you don't get the context and you can't read everything that's on here, and you will see it. Forgive me, right? So I'm trying my best here. I can't necessarily see what everybody sees. I'm trying to make sure that multiple platforms can see what I'm saying at the same time. But ultimately, if you start from right to left, over here is where is the character Nun. This is Vav. This is Abesh. There are no parentheses or anything in Hebrew, but I'm doing that for a particular reason. This is Nun. This is Kof. This is Samek, and this is Lesh. Okay? Underneath it, in the alphabet, so that's the alphabet. That's how we would pronounce, that's how we would write it, Nevaran Asad. Now, underneath, you have N, V, R, N, Q, S, R. Each character has a number attached. Above is the alphabet, beneath is the alphabet. Right? This is where you get Nero Caesar from. Now watch this. In Hebrew, it should add up to 606 or 666. In Greek, it should add up to 616, and this is for a particular reason. In Hebrew, so let's look at the top, the Hebrew. The Nun, right, where we get the letter N from, is the number 50. Right? 50 is what we get with this one character. The next character over is Vav or V in English, in Germanic, or in the alphabet in Greek. This gets us 6. 50 plus 6, 56. Right? Then you go over one more character, Vesh, which we have the letter R. 56 plus 200 gives us 256. Okay? None, again, and again, is once again, what number? It's 50 again. So now we're at 306. You see the number of a name, it's addition, it's mathematics. Let's do the maths. Make sure the maths are math. Right? Then the next one, Kof. The letter Q has the number attached to it. It represents the number 100. 306 plus 100 gets you 406. Then next we have Samek, the letter S. That gets you 60. Right? 406 plus 60 gets us 466. And then lastly, we have Lesh, with the letter R again. Once again, it represents the number 200. Once again, it represents the number 200. Then the number 200, 466 plus 200 equals 600, 3 score and 6, 666. Now, the reason we have this none in the middle in parentheses is because in the Hebrew, we have this character, none, twice. But in the Greek, they don't use the N twice. So they take the N off. They take off the numerology 50. So 666 minus 50 gives you the number 616. This is why in the Hebrew, when you read Revelation, and some of you have in your Bibles, you have different things, because in the Hebrew, in the original, it's 603 score and 6. But in the Greek, when they talk about the same person, right, they take one of the letters off. When they take a letter or a character off, you also subtract numbers. So that's why some of you have heard the number 616, and that's why others of you have heard the number 666. Depending on if you're talking about Hebrew or Greek, right, the Greek transliteration or the original Hebrew, right, you'll get a different number, but it's the same name. This really seals the deal for us if somebody tries to say, well, no, because in different, okay, if we take this to the Greek, to the Septuagint, where they rewrote it, that's where you get that 616 from. So in other words, it's in essence a code. It's in essence coded. And you can look for yourself if you know the code, if you know the culture, and you can see for yourself when it says there's a number of a name, then you need to notice authority. And if you notice authority, you will be wise because you make sure that you have proper understanding. That's what it says, Revelation 13, verse 11. All right, I'll leave this up for about 10 more seconds. And if you didn't catch it, you just have to watch the recording. Right? But you guys see that? Right? I'll leave it up for a few more seconds. But that's what that looks like. I'll try to even take a picture of it after I'm finished and post it just to make sure that you guys can see it on different platforms. Just in case somebody says I missed it, or somebody can't take a picture for some reason, or somebody's like, you're going too fast, I can't write the notes down. I get it, right? But we got a lot of other stuff to get into. We talked about this yesterday as well. So you can look at yesterday at the end of the recording, you can look at today at the beginning of the recording, then you can begin to put this stuff together even more. And then you can either go, if you're part of Hebrew Characters class, we do the same thing again. And if you're with us long enough, you'll see me write this down at some point again in the future. Right? Okay? But this is what it means when it says the number of the name. You see that? So, this is crucial because a lot of persons don't know the number of the name and have been told and have been taught, right? Like a lot of different things that nobody has a clue. Nobody knows where that comes from. How can we tell? You know, they come up with these interesting things, but once you go through the series, once you go through the content, once you go through what the persons who actually wrote this stuff at the time they wrote it, what they meant it, because that's what true interpretation is. You cannot interpret. When somebody said, this is my interpretation, that's not how you do lawful interpretation. Lawful interpretation means I have to actually know what the person meant, what did they say it, when did they write it, how did they write it, what was the culture, what was the language, how was that word used, etc., etc. And then when I can put those things together, it begins to reveal what's going on. But I cannot talk about anything, including history, including archaeology, right, including language, including eschatology, including the Bible, including belief systems in general, including husbands and wives, children. I can't speak on these things unless I actually know, right? And know doesn't mean to be aware of. Know means to be intimate to the point of recognition. Right? Even that canal, in its origin of the way that we write this word know, it means I must be intimate to the point of identification. Right? If you cannot identify it, because right, if you don't live it, or you don't respect those who lived it, then you'll get a whole bunch of stuff out of something. How you doing, Amanda? Thanks for being on. And shalom to everybody. Peace. And if I miss you, come on any platform. Thanks for being on. Is it JHS? Forgive me, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. And is it RIYLD? Please forgive me, Raul. I'm not sure how you say it. Right? So it's extremely important. It's extremely important. That's That's what they wrote. When they said this is the number of a name, that's how you wrote it out. And once you recognize that's how you wrote it out, how you doing, Aaron? Once you realize that you got to be crazy to believe it's yours. You got to be crazy to think that somebody writing in Hebrew means what they mean when they write in Hebrew, right? And that's why we have to make sure. See, this is not for everybody. I'm not here to present this as if everybody's supposed to agree or everybody's supposed to live by this, right? Because everybody should live by this, but you have a right to do whatever you want. But somebody will come on somebody else's platform and say, you're crazy, everybody's crazy to believe any of this, and I'm literally writing to you a person, no, even if you believe it to be mythology. If you study mythology, you don't go, they're crazy for writing blah, blah. And even if you do, you still read it and say, okay, that's what they meant in the story of. You know, these cats be wild. Shalom, Sister Zabrea, how you doing? How you doing? Great to see you on. Praying for you. How you doing? Is it Indigenous Goddess? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Section? And if I miss anybody on any platform, forgive me. Thank you for being on. We appreciate you. Let's see. You said I'm Barack Obama's little brother? I don't even, yeah. All right. Racism, that is fine. All right, how you doing, Brother Dennis? But yeah, so it's important that we catch culture. So now that you know the number of name, it's extremely important because now I want to present to you that if you are just finding out what this name or this authority, what's authorized for this second beast, then you must recognize that there's a cover-up. Because if we're talking about something that applies to what Nero did, and therefore what Nero did is something we can catch happening over and over again in the system, then you must know that there's a cover-up, just like it happens with anybody else. See, now that we know this is talking about a spirit attached to Nero, like we talk about a spirit of Jezebel, we talk about the Sandal spirit, we talk about all these different things where persons do things, and if we pay attention to what they did, we can start seeing what happened over and over again. See, now that we have that in mind, how you doing, Mary Carter? Now that we have that in mind, we can start really having some really in-depth conversation, because first things first, there's a cover-up, as there always is. Right? There's a number of names, and if we be honest, this is supposed to be a mystery of sorts. Now, we know that the mystery should be revealed, but this is a mystery of sorts because, once again, this is not for everybody. And so we have this weird thing that happens to where we believe that everybody's supposed to get this, everybody's going to receive it, everybody's going to do it. Once we show somebody the truth, when we actually show, hey, like, this is what it is, once we show historical documentation, once we tell you who agrees with it, once we tell you what scholar agrees with it, as if, you know, we can't be scholars, but we don't look like them, so we have to tell you, you know, that we talk enough like them or can give you enough of their sources to be acceptable. But once we give you this, I need you to recognize that there's a cover-up that's been happening. Number one, right, if we just be honest, right off the bat, we know that the devil doesn't want us to know about being free. But number two, if it's his people, his children who have made the system, and have made the system to then have another system of persons who preach a word and get persons to believe in certain things, and preaching doesn't always happen from the pulpit, by the way, right? And people still won't believe, that's right. So preaching doesn't always happen from a pulpit. If I can just tell you, if I can just be truthful with you now. Some of you be thinking all the time about preaching coming from the pulpit. Preaching doesn't always come from the pulpit, right? There's persons that preach, you know, there's persons that preach as the mayor, persons who preach as the governor, persons who preach as humanity, persons who preach as patriarchs, as matriarchs, persons who preach as chieftains, persons who preach as kings, persons who preach as queens, persons who preach in different positions. Because to preach is to proclaim. We are not talking about preaching, though, just from anybody. We are supposed to preach a specific thing and a particular thing because of who we are and who we serve. Right? And thank you for the love, right? Because of who we are and who we serve. So when we preach a message, we give a message because of who we are and who we serve. I don't come to you with an opinion. Right? I come to you, and I'm not just talking about, I'm coming to you with facts. It is not just the fact of the matter, right? I'm telling you, I'm coming to you with something that you have that might cause you to have an incomplete thought process, which is culture. I want you to recognize something. One of the greatest things that's starting to happen is that persons are trying to cover up evil. And this goes back to a spirit of Nero, the authority of Nero. If you were to look up right now, here's a quick assignment for you. Go ahead and check for yourself. I'm lying. See if I'm making it up. Quick assignment to do this throughout the day, whenever you have time. Go look up on YouTube. Just type in Nero. And see how many videos will pop up to try and tell you how Nero is not really wicked. And that people are just telling you he's wicked. It's a cover-up. And I want you to know, see this, we're talking about the authority of Nero. We just wrote this out, the number of a name. How you doing, Matt? Thanks for being on with us. Right? There's a cover-up. There's an assignment more than any other time as we get more seeped into these last days. There's an assignment unlike any other time to where you and I are supposed to be told that wickedness is not wickedness. How you doing, Zay? Thanks for being part of the community. And this starts back, they have to go back to Nero. If you look up Nero, I promise you, look up on YouTube. Look up, type it in on Google, same company. Type it in on Pride. Type it in on your search engine on, I don't know, if y'all still use this stuff, Yahoo, whatever, or Bing, whatever. Type it in and type in, was Nero a bad person? And you'll see all these persons. Now look, granted, some of their arguments are saying he's not quite as bad, but they're really trying to tell you, oh no, Nero was actually a great person who did this and he did that. There's a cover-up. And we don't even know that the number, the name, but the world knows that Nero, they'll even tell you, oh yeah, the Bible talks bad about him and blah, blah, but was he really the Antichrist? Nero, N-E-R-O, the same person I was just talking about, Nero, right? N-E-R-O, Emperor Nero, right? Way before there was a such thing as a Eurasia or a Europe. Well, back then there wasn't such thing as a European, but anybody who was Europa, they just meant you belonged to Rome. That's why Europeans always have romantic values, because they want to belong to Rome. It's part of being that. How you doing, John Jackson? But I'm talking about Emperor Nero. Right? Anytime we're talking about Emperor Nero, anytime we talk about this authority, first things first is you have to recognize there's a cover-up involved. And I'm not talking about conspiracy theory. Persons are going to try to make this hyper-theoretical and say that I'm injecting and interweaving things that shouldn't happen. No. Go look up Nero. Now, why is this important? Because the things that Nero did are the same things that your leaders still do. The things that Nero did are things that affected Israel. The things that Nero did affected followers of the way. The things that Nero did, right, are things that caused not a stone to be left upon a stone. The things that Nero, the descendants of Nero, at least those who are of the lineage of Nero as far as positioning, they're still doing the same things to this day. Right? Still doing the same thing. Come on, somebody. I know that this is difficult, but it's the real. I'm coming to you with the real. Still doing the same thing to this day. To this day. Right? Still doing the same thing. Throughout this day, trying to get you and I to believe that we don't need to check evil. If you look at even how Nero is, so watch this. For example, now some persons say that this is taking too far, some of this stuff is mismanaged, but you'll hear it even, for example, maybe you know about Nero, maybe you don't, but there's a famous fire that happened in Rome. And granted, Nero was out of town, but Nero showed up after the fire was over, and supposedly, the legend goes, or maybe it did happen, nobody really could say it didn't happen, but supposedly he played a fiddle or violin while the fire was burning. Now, one of the things that they'll tell you to try and cover things up is they'll say, oh no, violins or fiddles didn't exist back then. Well, when somebody today is talking about it, they have started to use the word violin. Fiddle is this new thing. Nobody was really calling it a fiddle. But fiddle, violin, whatever. But back then he played something called a lyre. I'm not saying L-I-A-R, right? But a lyre, a musical lyre, looks like a harp, basically, right? A lot of you know it from Cupid. If you've seen Cupid and he holds a little harp, right? That's a lyre, right? And he played that. We know he did that, right? Persons will be like, oh, no, it can't be real because he played the fiddle. It's kind of like the same thing person said, that the wood against leather can't be true because he used the word vacuum as if nobody knew what a vacuum. They say, well, a vacuum didn't even exist yet. A vacuum cleaner didn't exist, but we knew that space was supposedly a vacuum. We had a word. Right? So when somebody says that, it doesn't make sense as far as etymology is concerned, right? It's really weird. It's like somebody says, You know, the Greek person couldn't calculate because they didn't have a calculator. They could calculate because they had something different that they sometimes would talk about it as a calculator, but they just had a different system that they used to be able to calculate. It doesn't mean because they didn't have what you have, a TI-82 or something like that, doesn't mean that they don't calculate. You feel me? You feel me? Like it's different, right? We had these weird things, but persons will try to defend wickedness no matter what, including having to revamp history, right? Persons will try to defend George Washington and tell you how pious he was. He never told a lie. Then we started saying, well, wait a minute. He was ripping the teeth out of his slaves' mouths. His first 4 out of 5 dentures, right? His 5th dentures were supposedly all ivory, but his first 4 out of 5 were made mostly out of slaves, out of the teeth he ripped out of slaves' mouths, and they give him wooden tokens, saying that he paid them off when he ripped it out their mouth, right? You found out too. So then what do they have to do? They started changing it up. Well, yeah, but he was just a person of his time. There were persons in his time who were abolitionists. And by the way, why do we deny the people, right? The persons, the human beings that were enslaved. We think they were okay with being enslaved. He was not a product of his time. He was a product of wickedness. He was wicked in his time. Let's just be honest. He was doing things that his father, the devil, told him to do. You said this what story fall under Greek mythology? I'm not sure what story you're talking about. The story of Nero? No, Nero was a real person. He's an emperor. What I'm about to tell you today about Nero, he actually existed. See, sometimes the real story is greater than anything somebody could write. They want us to believe it's fake. They want us to believe it's mythological. But if you know what Nero was about, and you know that that's what's authorized with those who have the mark of the beast on their forehead and in their right hand, you already know what's coming. It's a cover-up, right? This is a design. This is designed, right? The further away we get from it, now persons want to say, oh, you know, it really, he gets a bad rap. And could he have gotten a bad rap for some things? Sure, we'll go through some of that stuff. But I wanted to talk to you about Nero because Nero is important because what Nero did is what everybody else did. Oh, I mean, if you heard of him in a Greek mythology class, maybe so, but he's not a myth. He's a real person, right? And you know, he was after the Greek myths, right? He's Roman. Now the Greeks and Romans served the same deities, right, which a person called gods, but nowadays, but they're no, he might have tried. He tried to make himself a deity because he turned his father, his fleshly father, into a he got the Senate to allow his father to become a deity. And once his father became a deity, then that means he changes his name to be the son of the deity. Right? See, Nero has some stuff that if we pay attention to him, he has some stuff that he's doing that persons are still doing today. And if you catch it, right? See, this is in Revelation. We're told the number of name. We're told this mark. We're told it's going to be written upon people's foreheads. It's going to be in their right hand. We're told the only thing that's going to allow you to be able to purchase things in the system is you got to agree to it. This is why a person got to learn how to be separate. And this is why we're going to have to learn. Look, I'm here to tell you right now, you need to learn how to be separate from this system so quick. See, there's a cover-up. Have you recognized that there's 20, I'm going to just say 21 because I'm not 100% sure what the number is. I know it's in the 20s. Do you know there's at least 21 countries in the last year that have left having anything to do with the US dollar that have joined up with BRICS? If you don't know what BRICS is, B is for, I'm going to get this wrong. B is for Brazil. I don't remember. B is for Brazil. The I is for India. The C is for China. Who's the I and who's the R and the S? R is for, somebody help me out. Who's the R and the S? R is for Russia. I should have known that one. And the S at the end. But anyway, BRICS. If this is a group of persons who come together and said, hey, the dollar is trash and these persons are trying to go ahead and get at us. We want to be the world powers anyways. Right? They're not sharing the wealth and they're messing up. They're going into debt. They're forcing us to do it. And Spain, thank you. Right? And maybe it's Spain. I'm not, well, I'll just go South Africa. South Africa, right? I think South Africa is correct. Well, no, hold on. You know what? Let me just look it up. See, now I'm guessing. Let me just look it up. Who are the countries represented in BRICS. Saudi Arabia sounds like it would be a better one, but let me see. Okay, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa is original. Okay, and then now there's other, along with others who are joining. There's Egypt, there's Ethiopia, there's Iran. One of the reasons why they're fighting in Iran. There's Saudi Arabia, there's UAE, United Arab Emirates, and there's more, right? But I'm telling you that because as the dollar decreases, and as they're telling you, oh yeah, crypto's bad, blah, blah, be about the dollar, da, da. As the dollar decreases, and you're not investing in anything else, and you're thinking you need to make sure you only use the dollar because that's all you know. As the dollar decreases, only 51% of the country, 51% of the world is using the dollar. Would that surprise you if I were to tell you that? I'm not saying the dollar has zero power, but 51% of the world is saying either we're done with the dollar 100% or we pretty much phased out. And while that's happening, the persons who are over the corporation of the United States are literally doing everything they can to get rid of the dollar and start being part of things, invest in things, and own things that they tell you, while they're telling you and I to make sure that you put your faith in something that's dying. There's a cover-up. Same thing that Nero did, by the way, when they was running out of money and stuff. Same thing they do with their sports, when they put gladiator sports and things like that. Same thing they're doing now with all the arts. Nero was somebody who fancied himself an artist, and forced person to give him awards and stuff. Sounds like somebody familiar, right? Where they forced to get awards, and Nero got all these awards just because he was having parades called triumphs. Having parades and different things. How you doing, Brother Anthony? And how you doing, Steve Sonnier Jr.? Please forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. Is that Stephen Burns, how you doing? Right? Well, what I'm saying is with BRICS is something that's actually becoming, slowly, it's not there yet, but it's becoming slowly just as viable as the dollar. So you're going to have to learn what it is to be able to exchange or have things that can be exchanged for stuff. And you're going to start realizing that I don't care if it's a crypto. Now, you need to know what crypto coin is what. You need to know what currency is what. You need to do some research. You should always. When you're investing, no matter what stock you do, you should always invest and know what you're investing in. What I'm telling you is that you have been under this thing where there's a cover-up. See, we're in the mindset of Nero. We're dealing with the spirit of Nero. We're dealing with the authority of Nero. This Antichrist spirit is supposed to get you and I to think that something's solid, right? Preach something to us that it was solid. Preach it to where there's just enough lamb, just enough sacrificial lamb, just enough Messiah on it. But if we listen to what's really going on and see what they're saying, they actually are speaking like the devil. And you're right, and I don't know. I'm not here prophetically to tell you that the United States is gonna fall apart tomorrow. But you're watching it fall apart at the seams. You're watching it bust apart. You're watching everybody, right, on the left or the right, get into basically gang warfare all day, every day. You're watching so-called black folk hate each other on a level that has been unseen before. Right? Right? I'm just not even talking about everybody else. I'm talking about black folk. Are you Garveyite enough? Are you African American enough? Are you MAGA enough? Are you Democrat enough? Are you African enough? Are you Afrocentric enough? Are you familiar with AAVE vernacular? Are you Negro enough? Right? Are you FBA enough? Did you go to the right HBCUs if HBCUs are started by black folk? You're in a system to where Rome is burning, and somebody's just watching it and playing, and then after it burns, they come through and they buy the territory. That's what really started to turn the time for Nero. When things got real bad was when the city of Rome burned. Whether he started or not, we can't 100% say we know, but we know that a lot of persons became very miffed by it and started saying some stuff's going on, because while the fire was starting to finally die down, he already had plans ready to go for places that had been burned to say, hey, I'm going to build this here and I'm going to build that here. Does that sound familiar for some of our communities, by the way? Now, I'm not sure if you say this right. Is it Mia or Maya? Stevie Brown? Please forgive me. Let's be part of the community. How you doing, Sister Brown? Does that sound familiar? I know there's cities that I grew up in, the cities that I've lived in, the city I live in now. Mostly. And and they burn down stuff and come through certain neighborhoods all the time and say we have no clue what happened, but as soon as the stuff burned down, man, how quick did you come up with that blueprint? Even before there was a such thing as AI. How quick did you come up with that blueprint? How did that happen so quickly? Right? How does a whole community, how does the hood burn down? How is it that on North Capitol Street in Washington, D.C., everything boarded up? I forget that Fenty. I think Fenty's his name, the cat with the bald head in D.C. How is it that cats was getting $1 contracts? How you getting contracts to buy land and stuff and start building property for $1? How in Baltimore was cats getting stuff? I wish I knew about it. I would try to get it on it for real, but of course we ain't supposed to know about it. But how was it back in the day? Cats in Baltimore was getting housing and stuff for $20 a property, and they're gonna turn around and tell us, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's why MLK told you it's a sad thing. It's an unrighteous thing. It's a terrible thing. It's a wicked thing to tell a man to pull himself up by his own bootstraps when he has no boots. Here it is, you burning our boots and then burning the straps and then giving us the I forget. I just learned the other day again what those things are called, the end of the shoelaces or whatever. But giving us the end of the shoelaces and saying, why can't you climb up? When we came to this country, when you came to this country, you came to a country where persons who were enslaved, and you came to a country where persons who were still slaves, but you just called them sharecroppers. A lot of us come from sharecroppers, got grandparents that are sharecroppers. Some of us got sharecropping family members that were sharecropping into the 90s, right? And we're sharecropping, trying to get stuff together, but we had what was supposed to repair us, not R-E-P-A-I-R-S, but R-E-P-A-R-E. See, reparations. If something repairs you, if you don't know what that means, by the way, for it to be reparations, what you call, if it repairs, what it means is to P-A-R-E, it means to cut. So you were supposed to cut. You were supposed to give us a cut, basically. And that was from Field Order 15. Field Order 15 was not made by Abraham Lincoln. Field Order 15 was made by somebody who didn't like us, but liked what we had to say. Our preachers had to say, 19 of us, in fact, in Savannah, Georgia, at the same church we're trying to go to for Memorial Day meetup, for those who can make it there, right? And when we go to that church, when we go to that place, you're going to discover that that's where Field Order 15 was made. Same place where the Hebrew characters are drawn into. The stuff back then, those things still exist. Like Hebrew characters, we knew Hebrew, we were Hebrew, right? And right there, they said, what is it that you guys want? And we as pastors, 19 pastors, I'm proud to say that I'm one of them. They said, yeah, we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want you to give us a whole bunch of, we want land. Don't even give us money, don't even worry about that. Give us land and allow us to teach ourselves and better ourselves. And General Sherman, who didn't even like us, said, yeah, okay, right? He spoke the language of General Sherman. He spoke the language of a lot of cats who were still on the far right. Some of y'all on the left too, for real, just undercover saying it. But hey, yeah, they want to reach in my pocket, let them have whatever. And then when we started doing better, we had the Freedmen Bank and stuff like that. You didn't like it. And so before there was a Tulsa, Oklahoma, you did it too. You came through, you wrecked all the land, you took it back, and then you made the 14th Amendment, which you think is some great thing, but actually made it the point to where you could not be born free. You had to be born part of a corporation in the United States. Later on, 1940s, they make it official where everybody's thinking that their birth certificate means that that's what makes you who you are. And you think that being a natural citizen means you were born somewhere, when the actual natural citizen means that you're a real human being. You're not an artificial person. See, it's a cover-up. Same thing. Same romantic stuff. Same thing, it's a cover-up. Those who are in top are covering things, and whenever you go back and look at it, somebody's there to tell you and I that we're crazy. I would submit to thee. Is it crazy for us to keep pretending that we don't live in Rome? What about the United States of America is not romantic? You tell me. Are you still dating? Because it's not in your Bible, but you still do it. Why is that? Because it's romantic, isn't it? It's not because it's kingdom. Your Bible doesn't say one word about somebody going on a date, does it? Hello, Bruno. Does your Bible say one word about somebody going on a date? No. Why do you do it? Because it's romantic. By the way, why do you have a candle when you go on a date? Do you think that's just a random thing? See, we don't want to talk about culture and where stuff comes from. Why do you burn a candle when you go out on a date? Why are you eating in the dark? What sense does that make for you to eat in the dark unless you just don't have electricity? Yeah, because poor folk in Rome, and even some rich folk in Rome, and we keep it a buck because they didn't always like every room, right? There was some shenanigans going on in certain rooms too. But if you could afford, and it sounds weird because somebody's like, oh, you just get a candle. You don't just get a candle back then. You got to buy one or you got to be able to make one. And if you and depending on what you might need it for, you don't just burn candles like that. But if you had it going on, man, you could have a candle going while you ate. It's not necessarily giving you light like that, but hey, at least we got something. A lot of these things that you call apartments, persons were living in caves and stuff. A lot of them were. Right. Some persons in some of these apartments now, they might say you might prefer the cave. I don't know. But some of them were living in carved out caves. Right? Some of them didn't have. I know they could talk about the aqueducts and all that stuff that they actually took from Kemet and stuff, the mindset of it, and never really did it properly. Or, well, they added on to it. It was fine. But you know, you don't have a mindset of like, yo, they didn't have plumbing. They were getting, you know, even in England later on, you see that they're throwing their waste in the street. That's one of the reasons, by the way, if you don't know, see, there's a cover-up that goes on. You think this stuff is just there, but you don't realize how romantic it is and how romantic values still affect stuff. Those of you who are so big on you got to get the jab for this and you got to get the jab for your job, and the children got to get the jab, and you're not going to fight against it, and da-da-da. And everybody has a choice. But might I suggest something? Do you know the only reason the jab even exists is because the streets of England were so filled with waste, and you couldn't even drink water. That's why drinking is so big in Europe, right? Because it was the thing where you had to drink because you couldn't drink water. You couldn't trust the water. So anything that you drank, it needed to have a bunch of alcohol in it. That's why you're getting drunk. This culture. See, it's a cover-up. If somebody tells you that, no, here you are, you're just making stuff up. I need you to recognize there's a cover-up. There's a cover-up that's going on, and you guys are doing things not realizing even where it came from. Now, I seem to be fine as far as I'm concerned. Anything going on with you? Right? But here's the thing to the thing. Somebody will just tell you something random. So if I say, yeah, Nero did this, somebody there to try and cover it up. But let's look at this, even as far as the value of marriage. Right? And I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is it carbon, ether? Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for the part community. Let's do this. Nero had 3 wives, besides all his, side pieces, male or female. He had 3 wives. Right? His first wife, by the way, was like his stepsister, but his stepfather, who his mother, Agrippa, I think his stepsister Octavia, they had to get her adopted into another family so they could keep the wealth in the family. Then once they got her adopted into another family so that person could say it was incestual, then they had the 2 marry. Right? Then he got tired of her because she wanted certain things to be done, and she came from different stock. She came from family that goes back, I believe, to Octavius Augustus, Augustus Caesar or Caesar Jr., right? The one who came after Julius Caesar and became the unofficial first emperor of Rome, right? You said, I'm just going to say, you're just going to say that Nubian 9.5 nations are lost. I don't know why they got to be Nubian, but I guess, you can say Nubian as far as you're talking about Cush. Cush is married into Israel anyway, so that's a weird thing that you can separate them. But if you're talking about 9.5, you're talking about the Northern Kingdom. And the Northern Kingdom went, and they went to the land of Asherah, so to speak. We've been there, done that. But yeah, that's where you're coming in. I don't know why the distinction has to come in to say that they're more Nubian than they are when the 2 are married into each other. Once again, see, we had to have the separation of each other. It's very interesting that we do that to each other. And then, at this point, we're doing the so-called white man's work for them. That's the mindset that comes next. Right? But it's the white man that did blah blah. At some point, like, look, the Willie Lynch letter is a thing. Even if you don't believe it to be real, the spirit of it and what it actually says, those things did really happen. At some point, when we're going to stop doing his bidding, right? At some point, when we're going to stop doing his bidding. Okay, but if you're done, then scroll. I don't even get why people do that. I'll come on to let you know I ain't done. But no, it's weird. Anyways, some of y'all goofies like that. So when we talk about these different things, right? Right? And I'm not talking about you. I'm sorry, Dazed. It sounded like I was just talking about you. I was actually talking about somebody else saying something else, somebody else. So my bad. So my bad. I hope I wasn't offensive. I was having somebody else. My fault. And thank y'all moderators for what y'all are doing too. I'm sorry, you said the landlord told you that a lot of fires started on 4th of July in the hood so that the city could take back some of the land that they took. Yeah, that's regular in certain places. Right? But I'm trying to show you, right? Where was I at? And my apologies once again. And thank you for everybody being on all the different platforms. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for likes, shares, subscriptions, hit the notification tab, hypes, reposts, donations, whatever the case might be. I appreciate you, right? But where was I going? Where was I at before I messed up? Oh yeah. So his first wife, that's how he got married. Then Octavia started doing something. The people loved her, and he ain't liked that the people loved her, and he wanted to really be with somebody else that he was cheating with. So he divorced her. When he divorced her, everybody got upset. Now he was so frustrated because she was somebody that substantiated him. That's why he did these marriages. And can I talk about that real quick? Can we pause there too? All these marriages that be happening, real talk. All these marriages that be happening. This is once again very romantic. This is very Greco-Roman. This is very Babylonian. This is very Persian. This is very Assyrian. This is very Kemetic, as much as we don't want to talk about this. Right? And all these things that are going on. And we'll try to lift you up, Brother Jamal, later on when we can. And maybe we can add him to the prayer list. I'm sorry to hear about that. And all these things that are going on, really at the end of the day, there's a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? Tap into that, tap into the shalom, tap into the shalom. Take time to grieve, take time to mourn. Your father's life is your father's life. At this point, his soul and spirit are asking for the body to be dead, asking for the body to be present with the Lord. So at this point, his legacy is, if you're trying to continue his legacy, keep that in mind and do what you need to do to be strong in that. Right? But that being said, as far as these marriages, when we deal with these marriages, right? A lot of persons just assume that person just get married like you do. And for real, nobody really should get married like a lot of us do, because there's supposed to be a certain way that's done. And the community is supposed to be involved, and we're supposed to be trained and wanted to be husbands and wives from birth. But we don't do that anymore. Especially in a community, in a society that says that you should date, right? And you should swipe left or swipe right. And that you shouldn't make sure that the community is involved, and that you shouldn't vet people. And, we've kind of gotten away from the original. Once again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, we wrestle against the origin of things, against principalities, against wickedness in high places, darkness, etc., etc. But you have to recognize, have you ever thought about how powerful people get married? And why they get married? How you doing, Jess Bernard? Have you ever thought about that? How and why do powerful people get married? Do they get married just because? See, sometimes we get married just because. Or you've been dating somebody for 5 years. Okay, I guess we might as well start talking about it. Or, hey, we got children. I want to make sure I do right by the children. And look, I'm not saying that these things cannot work out at all, because all things can work together for Tabah, for those that love Allah and are called according to his purpose. When we become sovereigns within the kingdom, Holy Spirit, works on our behalf. That's who that, when you read Romans 8:26 through 28, you see that the saints have Holy Spirit who intercedes on their behalf. And because she intercedes on our behalf, then all things work together. It's not just that all things work together. That there's some stuff that must happen. But that being said, have you ever thought about how these powerful persons actually get married? We could learn some things from their marriages. Now, some of the stuff we should not do or unlearn as well. But we could learn some things from them. But they get married because they're putting together nations. What I said about the saints is this. Romans chapter 8, verse 28, is where a lot of persons say, it says that a lot of persons just go straight there. I'll say it the way that person said it in English. All things work together for the good, for those who love God and and are called according to his purpose. But if you go back and read it in context, what it actually says, starting back a couple verses earlier, is that it says that the Holy Spirit, she intercedes on behalf of those who are saints. And if you go through Romans, you have to discover who the saints are. It's talking about those in the kingdom, those in Israel, those that are grafted in and become Israel. We all become one nation, become the kingdom of heaven. So it says those who are in the kingdom of heaven, the Holy Spirit intercedes on our behalf, and even can interpret things that we be grown and just go, or stuff like that. She's able to take those things and say, let me bring them up, let me make sure that they're properly heard. And because that happens on our behalf, that intercession happens on our behalf, not everybody, but on this behalf of the saints. Because you are a saint, those who write all things because of that intercession will end up working together for your good or righteousness, right? Because of what you are called to. The word called there is kletos, it's invited. So what you are invited to, right? And called to, because you love Elohim, achava Elohim, which is to have the love of the Most High for him, right? His type of love, give it back to him. And you are called, kletos, invited according to his purpose, right? And then the verse after it says, the way it says in English is, for those he foreknew, he also predestined. But if you actually look at it in its original form, it would actually say, for those that he forecasted to and forecasted would come, he also prioritized them, right? And really, so Holy Spirit intercedes, and for those that the Holy Spirit intercedes on their behalf, because once again, we are very malleable. A lot of us are malleable to the flesh and through the prism of the world, right? And the leaven of the Pharisees is what we look for to be interjected in us so we can rise to certain positions rather than forgetting who we are as unleavened royalty. For those of you who were on with us last night, you know what I'm talking about. So because of that, a lot of persons miss was there, but Holy Spirit is the one who intercedes on behalf of not everyone, but on behalf of the saints. And if you do not qualify as a saint, then Holy Spirit is not interceding on your behalf. Doesn't mean Holy Spirit can't try to talk to you and communicate, right? But it's going to be very difficult, right? If you don't have the ear to hear, how are you going to hear a message? As it says in Romans chapter 10, verses 13 through 16. Anyone who calls upon the authority, the name, the Shem of the Most High, right, of the Lord, they shall be saved. But how can one be saved if they do not believe? And how can one believe if they have not heard? Like, how can one hear it if it's not being preached? And how can one preach it if they haven't been sent by the Most High? For how beautiful are the feet of those who are followers of the way, who are walking in the way and preaching and teaching this properly. Therefore, who, as Isaiah, and this is what Paul says, he quotes Isaiah. He said, as Isaiah said, who shall believe our report? That's Isaiah chapter 53, by the way. So now you got to know who we're talking to in Isaiah chapter 53, right? And so those who are going to become part of us, yeah, you have to become part of it, but you got to become part of the nation. Right? And if you're not going to leave being Dominican, or leave being Bahamian, or leave being Australian, or leave being whatever, to be able to make sure that you become a kingdom, then you're not really ready for this. Who qualifies to be a saint? I just said, those who are in the kingdom. If you're talking about Bible, if you're talking about Revelation chapter 7 tells us there's a group that must be sealed. It's not that officially the number 144,000, but it's represented by that because there's 12 nations, and then there being 12 nations mentioned in multiples of 12 to get us to 144,000 is basically saying, exponentially speaking, Israel must be sealed. Then persons who are grafted in, according to Romans chapter 11, of all other nations, tongues and kindred and stuff, when you're grafted in, but whatever happens to one happens to all, as reiterated in Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. Right? So you have to be part of this community, you have to be part of the kingdom. The kingdom is a country. You said, no, sir? Okay. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong. And if you don't mind, Brandon, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this, not Q&A today. Now, you can come back tomorrow if you like and argue me down, to a certain degree, respect is respecting time is respect the time. But you can come back tomorrow if you actually have time, or Friday. We'll be doing outright Q&A, but I got to focus on Nero or something. But if you don't mind, the chapters, the verses, and stuff that I said, tell me what I'm saying is wrong. I'm wrong in Romans chapter 11. Okay, what am I wrong about in Romans chapter 11? It doesn't say that there are those that should be grafted? Or you just want somebody that doesn't accept anything Paul says because we mismanage Paul? Because Paul talks a lot about law. And Paul says a lot of things, and he says the law is holy, the law is perfect, the law is true, the law is without sin, Romans chapter 7. So if we go on there, we got to throw that out. A lot of persons are trying to do that because they want to say that grace means unmerited favor, even though grace is not ever defined as unmerited favor in the Bible, whether it be in the Greek or otherwise. So if that's where we're coming from, we have the wrong mindset. But what is it that Paul said? Paul didn't say, matter of fact, Paul went to the point to say that, hey, if you get grafted in and you get too comfortable and you start trying to kick people out or whatever, he says, realize that your branch can be taken off too. He's only quoting Jeremiah 11:16. Okay, so when he's quoting Jeremiah 11:16, and he's mentioning it, by the way, the same Paul, because we have a whole bunch of letters from Paul, right? This is just the last letter of Paul, or one of the last ones in the book of Romans, right? So if we look at Paul in what is it, Galatians chapter 3? If we look at Paul in Galatians chapter 3, he's also mentioning law, mentioning Deuteronomy there as well, right? He makes it a point to say, he's talking about persons who are coming in. We talk about Ephesus, he's talking about persons who are coming in. We talk about Corinthians, even 1 Corinthians, where people try to make it a communion scripture. He's saying if you come into this, you must give up those things, and you have to be doing what we're doing. We're not saying you got to do it right away, right? We're not saying you can't learn the word and that you should never even be able to pray because you're not these things yet. But these things I did leave with you. He starts talking about Passover. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Why are we trying to do this once again? By the way, if we're talking about Christ, then let's get rid of Ruth, because according to you, we got to do the same thing. She can't be an Israelite either, right? I mean, we got to get rid of Ruth. We should never have a great discussion about how somebody can be grafted from Jericho. You don't want to use that term, but we're talking about the same thing, and how there can be spies, Jericho, those spies are saved, and that those persons' family can be brought in. By the way, when we left Kemet, did we not leave with a bunch of persons who were Kemetic? Did we not live with a bunch of persons who were Cushitic? By the time we get into Canaan, we don't call them Kemet, we don't call them Cush, we call them all Israel. They have to leave where they are, right? That's how nations, that's how kingdoms work. You can't be a kingdom of something, right? Or else you will be a stranger. If you're a stranger, you don't get to do those things. So they wouldn't have been able to celebrate Passover. They wouldn't have been able to do Feast of Unleavened Bread. They wouldn't have been. You cannot be a stranger. So if you're going to come into this, right? There's even laws about that. So if you're going to come into this, you have to leave those strange things behind at some point and become part of the nation. That's how nationality works. You're not talking about nationality. You're talking about something different. Yes, Matthew 24, all over it, right? The last days, not a stone left upon a stone, which is where we're heading later on. Nero is not actually the one who looks over it, but he's the one who sent Vespasian. Nero would die 68 AC, not a stone left upon a stone left in 70 AC. Yeah. And by the way, that also tells us not to worry about persons who say that they come in his name, or who say that they are him, or that say that we should worry about the wicked system, or we should worry about this, that, etc. The third. People are saying because there's wars, he's coming and blah, blah. He says, no, those are the beginning of sorrows. These things must happen. But when we get to Matthew 24:13, it says, those who endure the same shall be saved. In verse 14, it says that we must preach the proper message, not just what it is that we feel like, or the thing that makes us have the leaven of the Pharisees, and say that therefore we're better than everybody else. But we must preach the proper thing that evangelizes. That word God spelled of gospel. That's what that actually means, even in the Greek. It's evangelou. So to evangelize, right? So you must use what the word is, the proper law, to evangelize. And anybody who's coming into that, they got to be correct. That's why the next chapter, Matthew 25, talks about the wives, right? The 10 virgins, 5 were foolish because they didn't have anointed, they didn't have the oil, they weren't making sure they were prepared for their husband. That's a marital scripture, because that's what the wives are supposed to do. Husbands were supposed to prepare a place for their wives. I go to prepare a place for them. Wives are supposed to make sure they have oil in their lamp and they're preparing themselves for their husband. So when the husband is sent back by his father, because only the father knows the day and the hour, like, you're not saying anything I'm not aware of. You hear what I'm saying? Right? You're not saying anything that I'm not aware of. Right? The context matters. And if we're going to, once again, if we're going to do this, then we have to say, hey, Ruth should not be mentioned in any lineage. Bathsheba and Uriah should not be mentioned in any lineage. Matthew chapter 1, therefore, is something we should mention. And Luke chapter 3 is something that should go away. If we're going to be holy, let's be holy, let's be holy, let's be Allah, let's be Aleph, let's be one. Let's get it from the whole thing. It's got to go through the whole thing now. It can't just be something that I have for one place and then all of a sudden, not right. So I'm not here to do the thing where it's like an actual physical Israelite doesn't matter. But I'm not also going to do the thing to where we've had this thing consistent from the word from the jump. We're not going to pretend. Look, when Jonah went to the Ninevites, why was Jonah sent to the Ninevites if the Ninevites were never anything and that it was not Yah's will that any, right? It's not Yahweh's will that any will perish but all will have everlasting life. Why is Jonah sent to Ninevites? Matthew chapter 15. How about this? I'm going to do what I teach. You're not actually going to deal with the stuff that I'm telling you that's already disqualified. Like, you're having an argument, and I get some of it, but your apologetics look like Dunning-Kruger effect. You're kind of getting to a place where it looks off. Because even the beginning of Matthew, so I thought you were talking about Matthew 24. My bad. That takes it deeper, but let's go backward to where you're talking about. Matthew chapter 15. Before we get to verse 24, what's the beginning of Matthew 15? Right? If you're going to bring that to me, then bring it all the way and make sure you're correct. You're not even on the proper foundation. Because Matthew 15 starts off like this. The disciples of Christ, right, are walking around, and it's time for them to eat. And the religious leaders, leaven of the Pharisees, say, hey, we don't like what you're doing because of the tradition of our fathers is not being met. And Christ's response is what? Christ's response is, you talking about traditions and talking about your fathers, but you don't obey the law, because if you really obeyed the law, you would get to the principle, which is to honor your father and mother. And if you comprehend the context of that, there's a tradition to where persons were coming up with stuff to hide money and not have to take care of their parents because they were clergy, right? And so he calls out the clergy. He says, don't try to call us out for not washing our hands, which is your tradition, but is not lawful. And then he calls everybody over and says, beware them Pharisees, because it doesn't matter which person's mismanaged. It doesn't mean you can eat whatever you want. But he said, see, when it comes to eating, so they talk about eating, it's not what's going in our mouths or not us not washing our hands is the problem. It's what's coming out of it. It's what's already on the inside is wickedness. The context of where you're heading already to verse 24 is off. You're actually proving Christ to be right about persons who have a mindset to try and be exclusionary, especially when it's based off a tradition of what you value from a fleshly thought process more so than what the law of the Spirit says in the first place. So we already got a bad position. I'll do you one favor. It's not Q&A day today, but I'll do you a solid though. Because after that, right, that's where we start. So now you're talking about Matthew 15, and then we go to verse 24. Because we should have context, right? So now we're going to go there, and he's talking about where our heart and our passion should be. Right? Because this is after he said a parable, right? He talked about leaders leading the blind into the blind. Blind leaders will lead you into the blind. And the Pharisees, the persons who heard him speaking like this, were offended. Peter says, hey, tell us about this. Tell us what's going on. And he said, you don't understand? Right? Verse 17, I think, right? Verse 17, he said, do not ye understand? That whatsoever entereth in the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out into the draughts, right? If you eat it and then you release it. Verse 18, but those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart. If you whatever you're speaking is showing your passion, it's showing your love, or modern Hebrew your love, right? Your passion, your heart, and they defile the man. If you're not careful, these persons are speaking things that defile them and defile others. Verse 18, but those things which proceeded out of the mouth come from the heart, which defile the man. Verse 19, for out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man. In other words, am I saying you shouldn't wash your hands? Wash your hands before you eat, right? That being said, if you happen to miss washing your hands, it doesn't mean you're going to hell. It doesn't mean you're not on the level of Pharisee. Verse 21, after that, Yehoshua then goes and departs into the coast of Tyre of Sidon, right? And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, Yehovah, thou son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. This right? So he just literally said, y'all go into a place and you're not even recognizing the word, and you got some wild stuff going in your head. Watch this. So you're only trying to use one verse. This just proves the point. Verse 23. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she cried after us. Okay, so he didn't say anything. She's asking for help. He doesn't speak to her. His disciples are saying, send her away. But then he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, you know what the interesting part about this? Why is it that nobody ever talks about that he didn't answer the woman, but he answered the disciples? See, this cover up, this Nero spirit has gotten so much into the stuff that now we're talking about we're doing the same thing. Why is it that we covered it up? Verse 22. The woman cried and said, Son of David. She knows who he is. She calls him out by who he is. She's saying he's the Messiah. No, you say it, bro. Look. Just roll with, I'm sorry, wrong person. But look. He answered. He didn't answer her. He was quiet. But who does he answer? His answer was not to the woman. His answer was to the disciples. Now, what is a Samaritan? Because that's what we ultimately talking about. We're not even talking about a Gentile or what you call Gentiles, because a lot of people just think because the Bible says Gentiles, that's original all time either. But we're not talking about a Gentile, are we? Are we talking about a Gentile or are we talking about a Samaritan? Who are we talking about? Are we talking about a Samaritan? Who is a Samaritan? You see what I'm saying? Like people, the context of even chapter 15 is telling us before this trip is even made, you got to recognize that a lot of persons out here have wickedness and stuff that defiles their heart, defiles the passion, and now it's being spoken as defiling other situations. Right? By the time we get to this woman, is Christ answering the disciples, or is he answering the woman, or is he answering the disciples? You tell me. I'm going to read it again. Matthew 15, verse 22. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, Yahweh, right? Or really, Adon, please forgive me. Right? Have mercy on me, Adon. Have mercy on me, Lord. Right? Son of David, Barat Davad, my daughter, right, is grievously vexed with the devil. My daughter is what? Is grievously vexed with the devil. She's possessed. Okay. Daughter's possessed. Right? But he answered her not a word. Then his disciples came to him and besought him, saying, send her away, for she crieth after us. Tell her to go away. But that means cancel out what they say. What they said. He answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, once again, we talked about this before. When you talk about Christ, why is it you guys think that he is only talking about one thing and forget that Hebrew words could mean multiple things, just like, other words can mean multiple things as well. There could be synonyms and different things such as that. But this is like a double entendre. He's talking to the woman one thing. So that's the only way we think. But we forget his disciples said something, and he cancels out what they said by talking to them as well. He answers two parties by saying what? I come for the lost house of Israel. One party is saying, hey, I recognize who you are. And as a Samaritan, by the way, she would have been considered to be a dog. That's why he's going to use this term. He's going to test her. He's going to use a term that back then would be the same as calling somebody a mutt nowadays, or a mongrel, or saying that they're mixed breed, or saying that they're Melungian, or saying that they're all these different things that they have. That's what Israelites call Samaritans. Samaritans were most of them were persons who were Assyrians, right? Who had stuck around and after the 9.5 nations had left earlier, right? And a lot of them had stuck around, had kind of mixed and matched a bunch of stuff, and had a few things that were Israelite, and many of them were actually mixed with Israelite blood, but they weren't considered to be real Israel. This is why the woman at the well thing hits different, because she says, why are you talking to me? Y'all don't talk to us at all. Why? Because they consider her to be a dog. This is why when the disciples came back and it says they saw Christ. If you guys recall, it says that the Israelites came back and they saw Christ talking to her, right, the woman at the well, and they were astonished. But he sent them away before she showed up. He, knowing that she would show up, he sent his disciples on an assignment to make sure he could have a conversation with this woman, right? They were considered to be dogs. It wasn't just that they were not Israelite, but they were not Israelite enough. Can you see the difference? See, Let's not get into the spirit of Nero and start doing the cover-up thing. Can you see the difference? It wasn't that they were not Israelite. For a Samaritan, the problem was it was even worse as far as they were concerned. You're not Israelite enough. You a half-breed. You'll never be us. Right? It's not colorism per se, but it's almost the same thing as colorism. You ain't light-skinned enough, or you ain't dark-skinned enough. Right? I'm Dominican, but Papi me no black. Right? I'm Dominican, but I'm not Haitian. I'm Haitian, but I'm not Dominican. I'm FBA. I'm FBA black, but I'm not Afrocentric black. I'm African black, but I'm not African American black. It's the same. It's the same thing. A same spirit. You see the cover up? If we're not careful, we'll continue the same thing from Massa. Massa ain't got to get us to fight no more. Massa, don't worry about it, because we'll fight each other. That's what we be sounding like. Right? Matter of fact, it's interesting. My son's soccer coach is Brazilian, so we had an interesting conversation yesterday. All praises, right? And I've been when I was in the military. Did not want to leave. I almost went AWOL. I almost disappeared. I accidentally went the wrong place, right? Where Kakuda and some of the other stuff is, but came out of there, came out fine, and had some brothers, and we actually bonded over being black. It was a very interesting thing. It's changed the way I thought about stuff, and changed what I thought about abject poverty too. People say they poor in the U.S. We got some abject poverty, believe it or not. But you see what people are living in other places and stuff. It gets you to think a little different. How you doing, Ruthless? And thanks for being part of the community. But anyways, the issue that they have with her is not that she is not Israel. She's not Israel enough. And how you doing, Salt Peck? Thanks for being part of the community. That's the issue. So watch this. Verse 24, he answers and says, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then she came and worshipped him. See, our thought process is, he just said, I'm not here for the lost house of Israel, and he was answering the woman. But when the woman asked Christ, right, or said, hey, my daughter is vexed, she's taken over by a devil. She's taken over by a demon. She's been possessed. He didn't say anything. When his disciples said, send her away, his response to his disciples is what? I've come for the lost sheep of Israel, right? These persons have Israel in them. These persons are close. She even recognizes me as the king, as the Messiah, as son of David. I've come for the lost sheep. See, we only think that scripture pertains. There's a double entendre, right? At most. Really, I wouldn't even say it's that. But there will be somebody that'll argue, but your argument is once again based off of something that's fallible. Right? Look at it once again. Somebody not gonna like what I'm saying. It's okay. Right? He said, I'm not sent, but unto. Which means that she has to be considered. Especially because what? She acknowledges him as Christ. If she acknowledges him as Christ, then guess what? She's a lost sheep. And the shepherd. Now see, watch. Hopefully somebody catches this. She calls him, how you doing, Brother Bradley? She calls him son of David. What was David? Why is it important that we know that Christ is a shepherd? What was David? What did David recognize Jehovah as? He said, Jehovah is my, right? The Lord is my shepherd, but it says in all caps, L-O-R-D, that means Jehovah, that's his name. Yahuwah, Jehovah, Yahweh, etc. Right? There's different dialects you say, but it's the same name. So when she says, so when the Lord is my shepherd, Jehovah, right? So if he's the son of David in the lineage, and he's also the one who made David, he is the great shepherd, who also comes from a lineage of shepherds, of shepherd kings. And she calls him son of David. She calls him son of David. She calls him king shepherd. She calls him Messiah, anointed one, the shepherd, the king. She said, I'm coming to you as Lord because you are the Messiah. You are son of David. You are the king. You are over all. I bow down to you. I'm leaving anything else behind. My daughter's on the line here. This ain't even about me. It's about my daughter, something greater than that. And others say, cast her away until, and he said, I've come for the lost sheep. David left, right? David is known as leaving 99 sheep to be able to go and find one. Come on, somebody. And how you doing the baggage? Right? He's known for leaving 99 so he can go get one. That's how important the lost sheep is. Here he is, where there's this woman says, I'm lost, but I need you, right? Waiting on the shepherd's voice. She doesn't move. See, Christ doesn't answer. Before Christ can say anything, or maybe he just doesn't say anything, knowing the disciples would do. But Christ is quiet. Then the disciples say, man, send her away. What's she doing? And he says, I've been sent unto the lost sheep of Israel. That's what he said. Then, after she hears his voice and hears that decree, verse 25, then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. Now here's the test. Here's the test. Verse 26. But he answered and said, it is not meet, it's not acceptable to take children's bread and cast it to dogs. Right? You come to me, but do you recognize the position that I'm in? Do you recognize how people see you? Do you still see yourself as what? As somebody who's half-breed or Samaritan or blah, blah, this and that or whatever? And she said, look, even if I'm a dog, I belong to you. She said, truth, Lord. What is Lord? Lord is owner. Truth, owner. You own the dog. I just told you, you're Lord. Even the dogs eat from the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Master meaning teacher or master of the house. He's the Lord of the house. He's the Lord of the manor. She said, even if I be a dog, don't I eat from your table? Now watch this. It's interesting that people only use that one verse. He answered and said, I'm not sent but unto the lost house of Israel, sheep of the house of Israel. But he left out all of the other stuff. You see the cover up? Verse 28, right after that. Verse 28, he said this, Yehoshua answered and said unto her, O woman, this is one of the greatest compliments of all time. O woman, great is thy faith. To the person that you say he got nothing to do with. He said, oh woman. Woman is a term of endearment, by the way. If you hear somebody in Israel say, oh woman, we should be saying it as a term of endearment. Right? We say it to our moms. We'll just say, woman, but no. Woman, what would you have me do? It's not yet my time. Christ said that to his mom, right? Time for him to turn water to wine. She says, there's no even time for him. But because he had to be obedient to his mom, even though he said, it's not even my time, I'm not even supposed to be performing any miracles, doing anything. And she said, hey, don't worry about what he just said. Whatever, he gonna do what I told him. Whatever he tells you to do, do it. And he obeyed his mom. That's why he turned the water to wine. Not even because the Most High said, but because he was obedient, he honored his parents. He honored his mama. Mama said, do it, right? Don't we go through that a lot of times? Mom, I ain't trying to do all that, right? You know, like, Mom, I'm just trying to sit. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to do whatever he tell you. Just do what I tell you. Whatever he tell y'all to do. That's what Mary said. Whatever he tell y'all to do. Whatever he tell y'all to do, just do what he gonna do with him. Right? A term of endearment. He answers her and says, woman. Term of endearment to a Samaritan woman. Great is thy faith, is your belief. Be it unto thee, because your faith is so great, and because you recognize me as Messiah, and because you recognize that even if society looks at you like a dog, if you're my dog, you're still supposed to eat. Come on now, y'all know y'all be treating dogs like babies out here. They wasn't doing that back in the day per se, but y'all know dogs be in baby carriages. I see women running down the street, and I see a baby in a carriage, but I can't see the baby. I see it turn around. In my mind, I'm like, I don't know if that's a baby or dog till they come up. Come on now, right? He said, even if they see you as a dog, if you see me as your master, if you see me as your teacher, if you see me as the Lord, if you see that everything in here belongs to me, that you know, and you know my heart, and you know that everybody, see, persons don't catch this too because you think chattel slavery. See, the master of the house in our time is not supposed to be somebody who whips everybody. A master of our house. Look, if we have indentured servants, the indentured servants work under contract, and we're supposed to make sure that they work so well and live so well. We teach them, we take care of their property while they're gone. We take care of their parents. We teach them business. That's why you have the person who, the master who left, and he left somebody with 5 talents. That's 1,000 pounds of gold. He doubled up, got 2,000 pounds, and was told to keep it. Right? There's a person with 4 talents or 2 talents. That's 400 pounds of gold, and he doubled up. He got 800 pounds. He was told to keep it. There was a person with 1 talent. He had 200 pounds of gold. He didn't do what he was supposed to. He was called wicked and lazy. But the master gave it to him and said, I've taught you how to do these things and how to relate and how to do this, how to make money, how to do all these things. And when the person did what he taught them and what they were taught in the house, they were able to keep it. You got the wrong Christ. You got the wrong Christ. Because even if the world, even if other Israelites consider somebody to be a dog, if they become the property of our master, then they eat. Even if it be the crumbs they're supposed to eat. You won't even let them get a crumb? Who is you? See, now you sound like the oppressor. This is when I can't be mad at the person who says you sound like the reverse racist, even if I don't agree with the term. I can't be mad at them. I got to empathize, because who is you to say that they can't get a crumb? That they leaving? Do you know how many of these persons are living crazy in front of their families too? Now, some of them, they using us just like Democrat, Dixiecrats use us and stuff like that. But some of them are leaving their families, are being fired from positions in their church. Everybody telling them they're crazy because they're simply telling persons, hey, they are Israel. Hey, the Bible is true. Hey, the Chashvai is his name. Hey, they're saying these things, and we sitting up there, and you gonna give them a crumb? Meanwhile, you got this talent, and the master's showing you how to use it, and you won't double up. You ain't serving the same Christ that we serve. That spirit of Nero was a parrot. Just because you put on some fringes doesn't mean, right? Just because you got some of these on, doesn't mean that you righteous. Doesn't mean that you get it. It becomes apparent. What you say sounds solid. Remember we talked about that, Revelation 13, second beast. It sounds solid. It kind of looks like Christ. If we look at it, it looks like Christ is just enough. And some people let it go. But I listen to what you say, and I listen to what you say is the word, and I see it, I verify, I compare it. And if it sounds like Christ, then it sounds like him. But if it sounds like the dragon, then we're going to call you out. So don't hit me with that, right? Don't hit me with that Matthew, you're going to read Matthew 15:24. And you took it out of context and then didn't even talk about the verses that come before it, where it's made very clear that out of your heart, if you're speaking like that, out of your heart is something that is desperately wicked. And I can't hear it. I can't listen. I'm not going to give you no play on that. And I don't know if it's R-I-N or Rin, thanks for being part of the community. Right? Now, a person don't want to hear that. And there's a lot of Hebrew Israelites that don't want to hear me because I'm not willing to say, oh yeah, because Israel is only black folk. Whatever that means, because don't you know that Negro and African are not always the same anyways? It's different nations. Before you just made everybody a blanket African, which by the way, I get the sense of making sure we protect ourselves, but before you make everybody an African, I need you to recognize that everybody in Nigeria ain't the same. There's a difference between Igbo and Yoruba. Everybody in Ghana ain't the same. There's a difference between Ashanti and Swift. Sometimes there's Ashanti Swift, but there's a difference between Ashanti and Swift, right? You see what I'm saying? Everybody in Sierra Leone ain't the same. Everybody in Morocco ain't the same. Matter of fact, a lot of persons that you call Africans because they're in the continent of Africa, they're not even Africans in Morocco. No sort of God shall ever be heard. This is my Bible, this is my word. I see you, big bro. Right? Salah. I'm just saying. Somebody's not gonna like this, but I gotta tell you the truth. I got to tell you the truth. Right? So this Nero spirit is causing us to be bent out of shape and to lie and to fight each other. And to even fight the opportunity we have to allow the kingdom to expand. This is why this is not everybody's Bible. This is why this is not everybody's revelation. People are running all over the place. See, there's a cover-up. And once you know the spirit of Nero, once you know what's going on with the spirit of Nero, you know what's up. Tomsky, I hope I'm not giving you my truth, and if it is something you want to put to me, it's only because it's somebody who gave it to me who's greater than I. It's right. It's Yahweh's truth or nothing. It's Yahweh's truth or nothing. I thank you for the compliment. I'm just making it very clear, right? It's Yahweh's truth or it's nothing. How you doing, Miss Bounty? See, so when we know the spirit of Nero, right? Right. That's what we talked about earlier. If you get a chance, if you want to look at the recording, we wrote out for you guys on the whiteboard, what the number of the name is, and therefore the authority and how we know what the number of the name is, because every name has a number attached to it in Hebrew and in Greek as well. So if you're able to go there and look at that, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Facebook, you can just rewind and look at the recording and get it for yourself, right? I don't have time to go back, over it, but it's there, it's recorded. I'm gonna try and take a picture of it, after we finish, and then I'll try to post it for you all as well, so you can go and you can look at it for yourself, right? But in all these different things that you're talking about, you're having a different conversation. So that's why I say, even no matter what your belief system is, that's why you don't have a righteous thought process in it, because you're not thinking about culture. I don't care what your belief system is. I don't care what your thought of story or historical or what is his story. All of it. If you don't know the culture that's involved, you already missed it. Real talk, right? So a lot of us are having this conversation, this confusion about stuff, because no matter what it is, like for example, even when people be like, the Bible is whitewashed. Okay, if it's whitewashed, then what was it originally? Before somebody told you about the firmament, do you know what a quiet is? No, if you don't, right? Before you talk about Genesis, it wasn't called Genesis, it was called Badashat. What culture, what community said Badashat? If you're going to talk about Igbo, before they were called Igbo, do you know what Ivrit is? You see what I'm saying? Like, we're having these conversations. We're having these conversations about all this stuff, and in the midst of all of it, nobody's talking about, like, you have to have a cultural context. You have to have a conversation. And once again, there's no such thing as you. And I'm not trying, I'm telling you, I know persons change denotation and connotation, basically definitions and what they mean to them over time. But if you're going to talk about what somebody meant when they wrote it, I don't care what belief system. If you're going to talk about Allah, for example, then you can't talk about Allah. If you're talking about the original, you can't talk about it unless you're going to say which Allah, because there's more than one. Right? Now, what I mean by that, if you're talking about Allah, you got to talk about, is it NOI? Because if it's NOI, they're talking about man, and they're talking about a specific man, right? That is, I forget what country he was from, but a specific man who's supposed to be over the Son of Man. W.F. Muhammad was the Son of Man, and his father is supposed to be somebody who existed in the 1800s. So you got to talk about a different one. One of the reasons why you have a different Ramadan, because they talk about something different. But if you're talking about Sunni, if you're talking about Shia, if you're talking about original, and even Muhammad says, well, what you say should match what's in the Bible. If that's your belief system. I'm just saying, if you're a Buddhist, if Buddha said he left and he was not going to come back, then you can't have a Dalai Lama that says he's now the Buddha. That's your belief system. That's what I'm saying. It's just be consistent, right? If you're somebody if you're consistent, hey, even if I disagree, at least be consistent. But what happens is we got a spirit of, like, where people cover stuff up, because when we catch your inconsistency, then that's when you got to live all the way in this lie, right? But be consistent. That's all I ask. Is like, be consistent in what it is. Straight up. Be consistent. Don't hit people with your mama when somebody says, well, what is a woman? But then for sure, you would say, don't, like, look, just be keeping it above. Once again, different cultures, different systems. Be consistent. If you're going to talk about something, for example, as far as what people just label as LGBTQ+, whatever, homosexuality, whatever, right? Then be consistent. If you have a right to have a community and society where you should be accepted, then so does somebody else. And if somebody else disagrees, then maybe there should be different places of things that they can do things and you can do things, and both of us should be able to pass each other in the street peaceably. And I shouldn't try to, say you have no human rights, right? Just like I should. But be consistent. Don't then say that your lack of how you're being treated is how I'm being treated, because even if I was wearing heels, it was shaved up right now, it was looking whatever you think that a man should look like that's wearing that stuff, I would be shot before my brother who's white would be shot. Just be consistent for me. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's really what this stuff comes down to. Because even with the stuff we're talking about with Emperor Nero and the stuff that people are still doing is very romantic, y'all are inconsistent, but we don't bring up the fact, like, these marriages and stuff that are even popping up. Like, why are you having problems with your marriages? because you are into romance, and romance is something that belongs to Rome. That's why you call it romantic. It's called a romantic language not because it's nice. It's called a romantic language because the people you still look up to are Roman. Why do you have a Senate? Because Rome and Greece had a Senate. Why do you want Greek letters? Because Rome and Greece had Greek letters. Why do you want to go on a date with a candlelit dinner? Because poor people in Rome were fascinated if they could afford to have a candle while they ate. Why do you date? Because even if you believe in the Bible, for you Bible thumpers, and a lot of you who say you want to be of African cultures or Afrocentric cultures or Native American, indigenous cultures, they don't date. So if you want the results that they get, then you can't do what everybody else does. Be consistent. If you just want to say, I like what other persons do, but I'm going to still do other things that give me a different result, then so be it. But even Einstein, who y'all love, he said that if you do the same thing and you're getting the same result, but you keep expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. We're doing the same thing, right? Slaves, or persons even with slave minds, they called them free. By the way, Nero, he had free person. They called them freedmen back then too. Basically, like we were supposed to be freedmen, they called them freedmen. But those freedmen, guess what? When Nero was on the run for his life, guess who? The only people that were rocking him was freedmen. So even though they were slaves, they still considered themselves to be under Nero. You know why? Because the word emperor means imperare. Emperor means slave. It means emperor means head slave owner. So the emperor of Rome, everybody was supposed to be their slave. That's how that works. That's the mindset. Why is it that you want to be like Jeff Bezos? Not because you want to help people eat. You want to be like Jeff Bezos because Jeff Bezos got you running around like slaves and you wish you could do the same. And if that's your mindset, then your community, that's how you get all these persons that are getting all this money. But what do? All these gladiators in the same gladiatorial role, and they're getting all this money. And when they get all this money, what they do? They came to make sure that you eat them. Right? Are they making sure? You give our community, if somebody really, really wanted to, somebody can give our community $10 million. $10 million makes sure that everybody should be eating for the rest of our lives and our children and our children's children. They wouldn't even need 10 million. I'm just giving out a number. You really don't even need that. 300,000 done correctly will make sure people eat. But all these people that are making all this money, how much of it is being sold back into your community? Isn't Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, aren't they paying for the drones? Or not paying for all of them, my bad. Aren't they invested heavily? And I ain't necessarily mad at it, but I'm just trying to show you where the money goes. Aren't they heavily invested millions into making sure that the drones that are being used for all these wars that are taking place and taking out brown and black people? Aren't they paying heavily to make sure that they're making money off of that? You thought that money was coming to you? Look, Kevin Durant, he got that same nice move with the hesi. They come over and he'll hit you with the step back and everything. The man is what, 50, 40, 90? He's a great player. That don't mean that he's for you, though. LeBron James, he did the I Promise School. Have you ever studied the I Promise School and seen what's happening with the I Promise School? And I don't want to go into, because it sounds like I'm bashing our own. But I'm just trying to tell you, like, we're not thinking about things as a nation. I don't want to, like, get to the point where I'm just being like, everything we do is wrong. No, we do a lot of great things too. What I'm trying to tell you though is persons that are really doing things are starting to think about us as a nation. What's her face down in Texas? Jasmine Crockett, she just lost. For those of you who are into that, I don't vote because I'm in the kingdom. I'm not in, in all the stuff that y'all do in the corporation United States. 28 USC 300215 subsection A, right? By law, United States Code, United States not a country, it's a corporation, right? A federal corporation, excuse me. So I'm not worried about all that stuff because I know how stuff rolls. You got to be a natural person, a real person, not be in this artificial mess. But for real, if you're talking about Jasmine Crockett thought that because black people voted and she had the black vote sewn up, she thought it was guaranteed I got like 90% of their vote just off the jump just because I'm black or whatever. She thought that persons who were from other countries who were coming here in Texas were going to give her the same love. She ain't get the same love though. Why? Because she's thinking, oh, it's vote and it's about this. No, this is about nationality. And you guys have been tricked into believing emperors, head slave owners, romantic values. They have tricked you for so long into believing that you are where you were born rather than who you were born from. And if you ever find out who you were born from and then get with others who are trying to commit to a community, a culture, a nationality, a vision, a mindset, a currency, etc., that is the same, so the food is the same, everything, they wouldn't be able to do nothing with you. They wouldn't be able to do nothing with you. But they can always move us because we always bother. We always move. We're movable. We highly movable. We highly movable. It's easy to move us. It's easy to get us off. Get us off of what we're supposed to be doing. It's easy. It don't even take that much. Because we're so ready for separation. We're so ready to be separated. We're so ready. We're ready for anybody to tell us anything that allows us to say that I'm better than the next Negro. Because, and look, I get it. Many of us have been jacked up for so long in our lives, right, and been told that we're nothing, and told that actually the features that everybody else has, features that we shouldn't have. Many of us have been caught up in that for so long that anything that comes along that makes us feel better, that we'll take it even if it means that we have to be better at the expense of somebody else. But that's not how it's supposed to work, beloved. Right? We need to feel better, and I get it. But I always forget to say this. But there's a saying that goes like this: if the only way for me to be taller than you is that I have to chop off your legs, then I'm not taller than you. I'm just a monster. This is why we can't build a nation. It's because everybody coming in has to be over the other person, even if it means we got to chop you down at the knee. Right? Even if I got to chop you down at the knee, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm looked at as better than you. This is the problem. If I have to chop you down, right? If I have to chop you down, real talk, real spill. If I have to chop you down at the knee to be taller than you, I'm not taller than you. I'm not greater than you. I'm just a monster. But when we come together, everybody come, machete's ready. Because it's time to chop somebody else down so that we can be the last one standing. Like this is Highlander and there can only be one. See, when there can only be one of you, that's the problem. Because now there can only be one. So the enemy realizes, hey, it's 5 men against one. They get the chopping. We can't wait. Even in our stuff, when we said we're going to be together, we're going to be one nation, this, that, whatever. Even in our rap songs, we're going to be one nation, we're going to be together. Saying the same stuff, though. And I'm going to be honest. That's why I said some of the stuff I know is toxic. I'll be listening to some of this stuff, because I'm an old school battle rap, give me this stuff. Ooh, that was vicious. That was nasty. But we shouldn't be vicious and nasty towards each other for real, for real. But that's we think of that as being culture, as taking somebody out. We don't realize, like, even on the plantation, when we started coming off the plantation, if one of us ran away, we all ran away because that person was going to come back at some point and try to get us. Or they were going to make sure, right? Or if we all paid for somebody's freedom, right? If one person got free, we all got free. So one person, we paid for everybody's freedom. Let's make sure that we get it there. Right? Because whoever gets there to the top, well, if you want to say rap is poison, I think that there's more to rap than just, gangster rap. But, to each their own if you want to look for it, right? Just like, that's like saying, well, rock is poison. Rock is poison. By the way, that's like saying classical music is poison. Have you ever listened to actual lyrics of classical music or read them? Or even looked to see what a song is about? Richard Wagner by himself should tell you something about that. That's one of Hitler's favorite. Right? So I think you should, we got to be careful about all rap is bad. Right? But that being said, anything that we do, right? Yeah, this person don't know about culture, so just listen to stuff we did. Oh, it's classical music. As if classical just means it's a classic. Classic doesn't even mean it has to be old. But if you do your research, that's to each their own, right? Like the same Mozart that writes some really beautiful music also writes some very crass stuff to where the whole song is about, basically a woman. Or like a lot of y'all don't know, Mozart literally wrote a song for one of his women that he was teaching where he wants the arms to cross because she had big breasts. So he basically wrote the song so that when she was playing it and she would go like this, her breasts would come together and then protrude. And then her arms came together. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't study stuff, so we just but that's once again we've been taught. Like if it's just rap, as if all rap, just like it's nice, it's nice that Sly. If you want me to stay, I'll be around. That's my jam today to be available for you to see. I love that, but then what do you get arrested for? You know what I'm saying? So we gotta be careful, right? Oh, what's going on? Same guy who said that, same guy who talked about them sex songs too. I like the way you receive me. I love the way you relieve me. What's he talking about? So, like I said, people be covering this stuff up. That's why we gotta be honest, man. We have so much stuff and so much damage and things, and we accept certain things we don't accept because other persons have told us what to hide and what not. Hello, Rico Star. Sure. Science can always be here. What is it that people want to talk about? Science is always going to be here. So, because we're talking about Nero today and what persons meant when they wrote his name out, therefore those persons, I can't listen to it, even though I'll use mythological names to be able to describe things that persons saw as celestial beings, which we know scientifically or this and that, but I won't hear you about to actually see context. See, when somebody does that, you don't even know how to do a proper, you're reversing, right? The way you're supposed to do scientific, not just observation, but an actual experiment, right? Because first things first, you should say the hypothesis and then use the proper alignment of things to make sure that you can actually come to a proper conclusion, not just come up with a conclusion and have no clue what my hypothesis is. That would be scientific. Right? But the spirit of Nero, it causes a person to cover things up. Right? This is why persons, and if you don't get what I'm saying, you should because you're such a scientist. If you get what I'm saying, then long story short, if this is that, then this is this. Then you should have said, okay, what are the things I need to put together? How will I experiment? What are the controls? What is it that can be used to prove this over and over again versus what he's actually saying? But you come in and you've done, because you even probably assume that I'm a Christian, right? Right? That you're not in any way, shape, or form ready for something like this because you can't even live by your own standards. See what I said about the standard? I don't mind. Look, if you don't agree with me, you don't agree with me. I just don't like it when you don't even live up to your own standard. When you don't even do what you say you're going to do. Right? At least live up to your own standard. I try as much as I can. Self-destructive rap. That's all it's about today. Okay, cool. Kendrick Lamar, I Deserve It All. What's that song about? See what I'm saying? What's Kendrick Lamar's I Deserve It All? Now, I'm not going to say he has no songs that are destructive, but I Deserve It All. What's that song about? Make his son take it further than his father, yet he deserves it all. Yeah, I gave money back to the hood. Yeah, we deserve it all. What's that song about? Somebody told you this be against something because you hate. You said no standing in between? Okay, so what music is okay? You brought a classical? Well, I brought a classical. Maybe you didn't. Right? Somebody put classical in there. Maybe it wasn't you. All right. What music is something that you can say and that I can look through and that nothing of it is wrong? Or should I have to go through anything, including these people who say there's gospel music? Because gospel, first of all, is not even righteous, a righteous word to use. But secondly, even if you're into the so-called gospel music, is it not trash in that too? You said no one foot in, no one foot out. Yeah, so if I find rap music that's okay to listen to, for example, Lecrae. What's Lecrae talking about? Or what's Gifted Hands talking about? The brother that has no arms but talks nothing about the Lord. What's he talking about? What's Hezekiah talking about? When he has songs like Jerusalem, talking about loving the Most High. Right? Those are rap artists. What you talking about? What you talking about? See, once again, by the way, um, you know, it's interesting that we're talking about that, but once again, fine. So, can I listen? See, this is what we cover. We have to cover things up. You see, the spirit. I don't even have to go. I was intending on going a lot deeper in Nero today, but see, the spirit of Nero is so pervasive. It's just right there. Cover up. Everybody want to cover everything up. That same spirit is there. So, question: what is rock and roll music okay to listen to? By the way, Mama Thornton, should we listen to her because she's the beginning of rock and roll. Elvis and all them stole a lot of stuff from her. But is Mama Thornton okay to listen to? Didn't it rain show? Now she has some things going on in her life behind the scenes, to be honest. But didn't it rain show? Is that all right to listen to? You know what? Maybe we should just listen to persons who, we should listen to Kiss. Is that better? They look a certain part. Maybe we should listen to Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, no. You know what? Maybe we should listen to Kid Rock, who besides just the stuff with all the Super Bowl stuff recently or whatever, and a lot of his, anti-black sentiment and stuff like that. Maybe we should listen to Kid Rock because he started talking about how he wants to pay attention to finding little girls. You see the spirit of Nero that's around that covers up. They can't handle it. But we simply say no. We're not going to go with romantic values. We're not going to let you romanticize it. And we're not going to get away from who the Most High tells us that we are simply because you needed to be what you wanted to be in your flesh. You're not above the Most High. And you're certainly not above me. If you won't even admit to certain things that are going on. We talked about even, and we even talked about that image and how the second beast causes persons to worship the image. That image has to be the thing that speaks for what the nations look like, and that image has to speak. If you go against or speak against that image, they try to come for your life. Doesn't it say that? In Revelation chapter 13, we talked about that yesterday. See, certain words when I hear them. That's why I said you can look like the Lamb and it can sound like what you're solid, but if I pay attention to what comes out of your mouth, that's why you make it listen to the music. Yeah, I hear you, right? I take time out to just sit in front of the piano and stuff and vibe and stuff too. But I'm just saying, we having this conversation, and a lot of persons are going off of this stuff. See, when you say, oh yeah, rap, blah, blah, this and that or whatever, that's why I had to be careful. I'm like, yo, not all rap is a bad thing. Just like I would say all rock and roll is a bad thing. Like I would say all R&B is a bad thing. I would even say not all the blues is a bad thing. Real still. But you don't know what they are. You don't even know what titles are. Right? Turkey in the Straw, for some of you, seems like a harmless song. For some of us others, we know Inward Love of Watermelon, ha 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 ha. If you don't know what song I'm talking about, if you've ever heard that song, it's actually Edward Love of Watermelon, ha ha ha. Love of watermelon, ha 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 ha. Now it was originally before that Turkey in the Straw, but they started calling it that because they were trying. That was when they were saying the chicken and watermelon, and eventually grape soda was back then. Chicken and watermelon was a bad thing because black people were making money off chicken and watermelon, so they wanted people to start thinking that they didn't want to get it from black folk, and they wanted black folk to look at each other strange when we were eating watermelon and having chicken. And chicken and watermelon with a grape soda might be one of the greatest things that ever exist. I kid, but I don't. How you doing eating these herbs? Right? But once again, if we're going to have honest dialogue, we got to be honest, see the cover up. So when you say certain words, to me, I'm just saying, I reckon, and did I say hello? Yeah, Brother Yakasa, please forgive me if I didn't. I think I said Brother Alice, and I think Timo, please forgive me if I didn't. And anybody on all the different platforms that we're on, thank you so much for being on with us. We very much so appreciate you. He said, but you said I haven't been baptized in the Holy Spirit, and I'm talking still. I've been baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Right? You talking about some trash that you don't know nothing about. Or you talking trash because you don't know nothing about me. Right? And I baptized many. And because somebody like yourself's not on my level or can't stop what I'm doing, it messes with you to the point to where you have to come into what I'm doing to try and establish yourself or make yourself feel better. Right? But these are things that we have to recognize and realize. Right? And nobody wants to talk about these things culturally. Nobody wants to talk about what's actually going on. Nobody talks about time, times, and half a time. What happens from 538 AC to 1798 AC. We talked about this already in the series. When we talk about that, everybody go, oh, you're just making... No, it's right there. Number of a name. Write it out for person so that it makes sense in the Hebrew and the Greek. No, you're just making it up. Those of you who are spiritually inclined, you don't want to follow the law, and you're trying your best to be part of Bala Doctrine. Revelation warns you about it. In Revelation 2:14, it tells you who we are in Revelation 2:9. It tells you who we are in Revelation 3:9. It tells you who must be sealed in Revelation chapter 7. It tells you what we have to stand on in Revelation chapter 11. It tells you about Israel separated in Revelation chapter 12. It tells you about this beast and the second beast that come against us in Revelation chapter 13. It tells you about the power that we have and that we even know the names and authorities that we're supposed to be in Revelation 21 and 22. But you can put all that in front of somebody's face when you're talking about historically, biblically, theologically, etc. Excuse me. And a person still can't hear it, but that's okay because not everybody has an ear to hear. And I'm not here to try to make sure that everybody will hear, because that's not my responsibility, is to develop your ear. You got to figure out either how to develop your ear, or you just might not be for you. You said you see now regurgitation of your ancestors took right here to give us a book. Okay, cool. Who's Oluwadach Ekwiano? That's your ancestor. Who's Oluwadach Ekwiano? Who is that? I'm gonna help you with something. Tell me who Oluwadach Ekwiano is. That's your ancestor. That's a key to who you are. Who is it? You don't know? Okay. Who's Alexander Pushkin's grandfather? No, sorry. Alexander Pushkin's great-grandfather? Might be his great-grandfather, his maternal great-grandfather, something like that. Who's Alexander Pushkin's great-grandfather, his grandfather? Who's famous? It's important for you to know who you are, who you come from, right? What was West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa known as by name in maps when they went over looking for slaves? And who were they looking for specifically in maps that still can be talked about in the 1700s? See the cover-up? And see how a person will fight for the cover-up and won't even do so? Question. Who are these people? Who were they known as? What part of the Bible did persons say that if you were a Christian sent in somewhere, that Africans in West Africa weren't even going to listen to you unless you could tell them this particular part of the Bible? They wouldn't even hear all your stuff about the New Testament. What is that? Where was that at? The monks that wrote that, the historians who wrote that in the 1800s, the late 1800s, the early 1900s. Who were those people? You come from the source, but you can't give me any sources. I'm telling you, your people, and what's written about them, and what's on land. Who is Flavius Josephus, and what did he say about your people? He's a historian that if we don't know him, we don't even know really what happened with Vespasian and all those other cats. If you even know what I'm talking about. Who is that? Who's Flavius Josephus? That's your people, right? That's your culture, right? Then tell me what he said. See, you can't tell me, but you're busy telling me that, this and that or whatever is regurgitation. Yeah, I'm regurgitating what somebody fed me. But if somebody fed me the truth, it doesn't mean that if it comes back up that it's not the truth. If I'm telling you what somebody told me, and I looked and researched and studied and traveled, and by the way, know who I am, have been back home, right, have been multiple places where our people are from, and even on the Native American, the indigenous sides of the Americas, not just the United States of America, and all the persons I talked to verify the things that I'm talking about. By the way, who was it, right? Who was it that was brought over with Christopher Columbus to be able to speak a specific language when they were coming over to the Americas? They lied, right? And said that they were looking for India. China was already known to be in existence, and Japan was already known to be in existence from the time of the Greeks. These persons were daft like that and had no clue. People were coming over to the New World for slaves since Leif Erikson and them. What are we talking about? You see, this Emperor Nero spirit, this thing that causes a cover-up, and we covering up for Massa better than anybody else. But here you are trying to insinuate that I'm working for Massa. Fine. You, your own Massa, make sure that you teach me. See, I'm telling you stuff that's your people, but you can't tell me what it is. You can only deny what you don't know, which means that you're willing to have Dunning-Kruger effect. And I believe you to be greater than that. Be greater than that. Stop fighting just for the sake of fighting and see what I'm saying and see if it holds water. Matter of fact, I'll do you a favor. You're going to pause up here. You guys should be fine everywhere else. You're going to pause for just a second. It's going to spin for just a second. I'll be right back. I'm going to give you a name for you to look up. Right? I'm going to pause just for a second. Holy Spirit, have your way. Right? And yeah, I'm passionate about it today. I'm passionate about it every day. I ain't going to make no apologies for being passionate about the word. Right? Okay. All right. Luis de Torres, Alexander von Humboldt. Okay. Hopefully I can remember those. All right. Can you guys see me? Can you guys hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear me okay? I'm going to give you some more to the puzzle. Right? Can you guys see me? Can you hear me? And so if you don't get part of the question that I was asking, right, from 1492, right, to 1491, really, Christopher Columbus was gunning for the spot to be able to come over to the Americas, and one of the things he promised was that he was going to find something called the land of Asherah. It's mentioned in your Bible too, right? But he said that they were looking for Israelites. He had heard that it was that Israelites from West Africa had been able to get over there. He had heard it by being a sailor that sailed on ships with West Africans and mostly East Africans for most of his career. He hears about this and then tells them that that's what he's the one looking for, because they're looking for Negro slaves, because Negroes were considered to be a nationality. Go look up in Portugal and go look up in Spain. The first ghettos are for the Yehudi. We would call ourselves Yehavada, right? Or some of you call us Judah. They were known as Yehudi or Yehudie, right? It's actually the Spanish and Portuguese pronunciation. And they called us Judah, and we were called Judah because we called ourselves that. We did not marry into them. We did not give them any money. And they say, by their writings, and their historians afterwards said that we were swarthy in complexion, we were right? We were Negroid in feature, right? We were Negroes. We were also had locks in our hair. They said we had hoodies on. They said that we would stand on street corners for poetry over music. They said that we had extreme love for women because we weren't bisexual. They said that we followed the Torah. Right? They started to enslave us, and by the 1550s, so this is from the 1300s, they started trying to come against us, trying to get us to intermarry and give us some wealth. When we wouldn't give them our wealth, they came against us and then took property from us, and then even put us in like concentration camps way back then. The Germans just repeated something for people that aren't even us. They took us and put us in those concentration camps and stuff way back when. And when they put us in the concentration camps, by the way, right, then they started enslaving us, and they started enslaving our children. That was right into the 1550s, and by 1555, nobody was allowed to ever call themselves a Negro. And if they called themselves a Negro, guess what? In 1555 on, if you called yourself a Negro, there was a law that you could take a knife and you could take it to the person's cheek and slice their flesh to get them to shut up about talking about being a Negro. You can still see ghettos that started back then that are still up in Portugal to this day. Spain, I'm not as sure if it's still up, but you can still go to Portugal. You get a chance, get your passports there, and go over there and find it. Now, why is that important that we catch all that? Because by the time the doctrine of discovery started in 1452, you get into a place where you're in the middle of a war to where Moors have had control, right? They just took it back over from what the Carthaginians had. The Moors have had control since the 700s and are starting to lose it. In 1491, the last great Moorish king dies, right? After that, the Spaniards want to go and look for Negro slaves, right? Israelite slaves, Judah slaves, Yehudi slaves. This is all written out. So then Christopher Columbus is one of the persons trying to get this position. He goes to the queen and says, I know how to find the persons in the land of Asherah. That's in 2nd Esther chapter 13, verses 40 through 46. He says, I know where these Israelites, who are the 9.5 tribes of the northern kingdom, left to, and I've heard how to get to them. Right? Now, if you look this up online, they're going to tell you two things that go against each other. So I'm going to give you both, just to be fair. So Christopher Columbus leaves, and he takes with him a Hebrew interpreter. Forgive me for pausing again. Right? Right? So Christopher Columbus leaves. He goes and he gets with him takes with him a Hebrew interpreter. The Hebrew interpreter goes by the name of Luis de Torres. Sorry, excuse me. Luis de Torres. Luis, L-U-I-S, de, D-E, Torres, T-O-R-R-E-S. Guess what Luis de Torres is? He is somebody who can speak many different languages that are considered to be Israelite or even Arabic and stuff like that. right? But also, he's somebody that is half Israelite, was actually originally, initially raised as a Hebrew, right? And then he was converted over. And by the way, that's something that happened to all these Negroes that were forced to go from what they were, right? And to be enslaved or to exist or to be under others, they had to become slaves to the system, some which purchased their freedom. He is one of them. He is hired, like Christopher Columbus, to go with him looking for the land of Asherah. They end up in Cuba and they end up in Haiti, right? They end up in the Caribbean. Real spill, right? They end up in the Caribbean. When they end up in the Caribbean, what do you think happens? They brought him because he speaks a Hebrew. He speaks Hebrew. They got over there, and they started talking to Native Americans. But these particular Native Americans spoke in a Hebrew dialect. Now, I'm going to be honest about this part, because this is where, if you look it up, you're going to have to find two different truths and realize somebody lying. If you look it up on your Google machine, right? Some of you are going to have to find the books. The books are always better, but most persons just going to look on Google. So if you look it up on your Google machine, what you'll discover is they'll tell you that Luis de Torres did in fact speak these languages. He was hired by Christopher Columbus. Matter of fact, they'll even tell you Christopher Columbus did in fact hire him because he was somebody that could speak Hebrew. They'll tell you all that, right, from the jump. But then what they'll say is, but Torres never was of any significance over there. That's what they'll tell you. Well, but Torres, he never was of any significance. What he did, he went over there and he never was able to make sense. But then they'll say, but Torres was the one who basically established a whole bunch of stuff and was able to get things started and was able to get them to speak, which already is kind of coming out of two sides of your mouth, right? Three sides at this point. But then there's another name I would like to be able to present unto this. There's another name that I'd like to be able to present unto you, right? There's one more name that we're just going to be real about and present, right? This person goes by the name, right? This name is Alexander von Humboldt. I had a little joke here, here's a big joke. This one's Alexander von Humboldt. See the cover up? See the situation where they're trying to get you to not even know, and to put different numbers and be sealed by something else, to not even the Most High. It's right here for us. How you doing, Kirsten? Right? It's right here for us. How you doing, Elias? Thanks for being part of the community. Or Elias, Elias, probably Elias. Thank you for being on, right? Watch this. Alexander von Humboldt. Alexander, Alexander, middle, not middle name, but name, von, V-O-N, Humboldt. I believe it's Humboldt. Something close to that. Alexander von Humboldt. He is a historian who verifies for us that Torres, in fact, did speak, right, to persons who were over in the New World, and was able to verify that, yes, they spoke Hebrew dialect to be able to get information. And we know they had to speak enough to each other because they told Christopher Columbus in detail that the weapons that they had were weapons that were called guanin. How you doing, Sister Taylor? Oh, this is when they can't mess with you. See, when you know your culture, when you know thyself, when you know thyself, it's difficult for somebody to come against you. They had weapons that were called guanin weapons. They had weapons that were called what? Guanin. All right, hold on to that now. They have weapons that were called what again? Guanin weapons. Why is that important, Pastor Kofi? Ray keeps saying that. Because these guanin weapons were weapons that they said that persons who came over, speaking in the Hebrew dialect, by the way, they're saying this in Hebrew, persons who came over from West Africa, Negro land, right? Negro land, don't forget, that's what it was called when they started chopping this stuff up. They were looking for Negroes first. They were looking for Israelites first. They went to this place called Negro Land and Guinea, where there's a whole bunch, still a map that you can look at, and you can see where Israelites are on the map. They call themselves Israelites, not just having Israelite sounding names. They literally say, these are the lost tribes of Israel. This is the lost kingdom of Judah. This is the kingdom of Judah. This is the new Jerusalem. This is the they call us this right there in Africa, where places where persons have scattered already. Right? Real talk, they say it right there. Real talk, they say it right there. And they said they had these things called guanine weapons. The guanine weapons, they didn't believe them. They said, no, you gotta be lying, you gotta be making stuff up. So they literally then said, okay, what we'll do is this. They went all the way, took weapons, as well as slaves, of course. They took the weapons back over to West Africa, checked them. Then they took the weapons to Spain, checked them. Then they took them to the Vatican and checked them. And guess what? All three places of study said that they were made with the same metallurgy. If you don't know what that is, that means that the same percentage of metal, that was used in the same way that it was made, is the exact same way it was made in West Africa. Why is it that you don't know that? You're busy saying, I'm just making it, I don't know. Blah. Why is it that you don't know that when that's right there for you? Is it because somebody doesn't want you to? Now I'm just giving you names. I'm giving you time. I'm giving you blueprint. I'm giving you stuff, right? You don't even got. Now you can go and find other books. You can go look for, they were here before Columbus. You can, Dr. Yvonne von Sertima. You can go do some research. But I just gave you the game. And there will be somebody who literally will say, it's recorded. And somebody will say, no, you're just wrong, and won't simply do what? Study to show thyself approved. Look it up for yourself. If I'm making up something, then just tell me what I'm making up. But if I'm simply telling you something that you can look up in any library, well, I can't say any library, but nowadays with books, I don't know if Kindles is still a thing, with books, Kindles, research, online, universities, whatever the case is, just go and research. But if what I tell you is true, then for us to say that, and here's the wild part, once again, I got to bring this back, persons are uncomfortable with this fact. We always talk about how racism makes white persons hate us, but we forget about how racism makes us hate us. And so there are some of you that will assume that because of the way I look and because of how I dress, that therefore I cannot be right, even if I give you the so-called white scholars who I'm reading this from, as well as us. Even though if you look at the true Jedek, if you even know what that is, that's some of us who are supposed to know more than just what's written on the page, but we're supposed to be able to tell you history through music, we're supposed to be able to tell you history through art, we're supposed to be able to tell you history through spoken stories. You said, so did the Khazars move around to unite and fund slavery ships and seek Hebrews out in the Americas? I mean, I'm sorry, excuse me, I thought you were somebody else. I mean, I'm not really focused in on that per se, but I'm talking about kind of focusing on something. But I mean, you're talking about the bars and child slavery, I guess. We're talking more about the Arabic slave trade, I guess, right? Or what is it? Because remember, Arabic used to just be nomadic. Now it's become a people, but it has become a belief system, which it never was intended to be. But I mean, I guess if we're talking about that, right? Because that's what the 700s we going back to, which once again is something that we gotta be honest about. Where a lot of Moorish persons and a lot of black persons, so-called black persons, so-called African people did do something. Now, all we're talking about the same as chattel slavery, we're saying, in ways, but no, not the same. But I mean, I guess we can talk about that as well. But if that happens too, that's why we say once again, I'm not talking about. And I don't think this is where you're going. I don't have enough time. And to be honest, it's kind of a blind spot for me. I know I don't go to the same extent as what I just said about the other one because I'm focusing on the Negro, if I'm being honest with you. I probably have to have a couple hours to make sure I'm saying what I'm saying is correct. But yeah, I mean, we're obviously we're dealing with that stuff as well. Even by the way, those same persons are. We don't even talk about those same persons or persons who deal with the Slavic trade too, not just the African trade, not just the Asian trade. Not only trading even some of their Muslim brothers who by law you're not supposed to, but they found creative ways around it. But even the Slavic trade, which is where you get the term slave. Yeah. So yeah, well, yeah, you can talk about that and go into the Portuguese, but at the same time, then we have to talk about who were those people at that time. Were they the same people living there? We have a difference there. So, but I'm being honest that 700s, because that's really the earliest my knowledge goes, like the 700 on that particular thing, the 700s to like the first century, right? So the 8th century to the first century, in that those particular people, that's not my area of expertise. So I'd have to kind of, you know, I kind of have to back up some and bow down at least to somebody who would be more, I'm a little in depth at that part of stuff, if I'll be honest, right? But I mean, yeah, you have to talk about those different things. You know, you have to talk about those things. As a matter of fact, they were even middlemen. So if you're talking about them, then you got to have bigger conversation. They weren't even really the main people. They were like the middlemen. They were the median. So if you wanted slaves traded, ultimately you were actually doing something for bigger persons and kind of coming through them. And some of them actually were selling slaves to make sure that they weren't becoming slaves themselves, but then that comes into a whole other thing that, once again, I'm not really the person talking about that. Right? Blanco, well, yeah, in Espanol, it's the word that we now call white. Blanco didn't mean, white for anybody didn't necessarily mean what we think white. We think white today is something similar to this, but that's not what white meant. Even in the times of the Bible being written, even if it being rewritten in the Greek, even with it being rewritten in the Greek, that's not exactly what it means. So it's a different thought process. But yeah, so can you see? I didn't even go as deep as I really was prepared to go. Maybe we'll hit this up a little bit more at some point if somebody wants to ask some more questions in Q&A. But can you see how this Nero thing now, this cover-up spirit, these things that are very romantic, and all these things we're talking about happen from Rome. I don't care if you're Marcus Aurelius, because some of y'all want to be stoicists, or you want to be Stoics. Well, if you were into Stoicism and trying to be like Marcus Aurelius, which by the way, Stoicism existed 500 years before Marcus Aurelius. But if you take Marcus Aurelius as your guy, he was somebody who had slaves, and he was somebody who committed genocide. I don't care what he wrote in his journal. It's very romantic of him to tell you one thing and then cover it up and then have you guys spend a year to cover it up and even make a religion out of it. And while you guys are so busy telling me that that's what I'm doing, y'all are talking about Marcus Aurelius. He's one of the persons that helps some of you think that you high value men. Some of those things come from his mindset. And that's why y'all are genocidal. That's why you guys are to a place to where you say that your woman is to be is actually something. It used to be y'all thought a woman was supposed to be seen and not heard. Now a lot of y'all cats think that a woman shouldn't be seen or heard. I mean, I don't know what we doing now. Now, now the thing is, your woman. Some of y'all don't know now. Your woman is supposed to just show up when you say she shows up, and she shouldn't speak, and she shouldn't ever have anything to say to anybody unless you say whatever. And then y'all wonder why all these boys are growing up and they don't know how to talk to a woman. You're very romantic. And by the way, here's the wild part is, and all the stuff we're talking about, you're not romantic like the persons who were slaves to the head slave or the emperor. You're romantic in the sense, you guys are romantic in the sense that you guys are like trying to be like the emperor, but in the emperor's day, you'd be a slave. Right? Like those of us who were in the comment in the chat right now, if you was in Rome, you would be considered a slave, or you'd be considered to be somebody that was very low on the totem pole, right? At the most, you'd be a plebe, if you even know what that is. You would never sniff consul. And by the way, even before they had emperors, they had consuls. Do you know what a consul is? A consul is somebody who gets to rule. You just only rule for a year, but then you go back when you're not ruling. You go back into the Senate in your position, right? And you go back to a patrician position. That word patricia is a patrician, right? Patricia is a patrician position where you go back to a place to where you guys are able to rule, but right underneath the main two rulers for the year. But you have families that are supposed to be allowed to rule, just like today. I know y'all want to keep talking about this one and that one and all these persons. That's why all these presidents are related. The money ain't going nowhere. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, right? I'm a realist. President Obama did not grow up with a single mama with no money. He lied to you. How do we know he lied to you? Because we know who his daddy is. How you doing, Sister Sheila? Or his stepdaddy. And by the way, just because they told you that his stepdaddy or his real daddy didn't want nothing to do with him doesn't mean that that's what happened. That's just the story they told you. By the way, him and Michelle, they just happened to randomly meet, right? Although all presidents' wives are picked out for them because they groom you to be president when you're young. Bill Clinton was being groomed by other lawyers when he was a little boy. I don't think these persons just get popular off the rip and now all of a sudden. No, these persons change their story up all the time. Dwayne Johnson was a poor, broke person. He never knew anything. He didn't want to go into wrestling at all, whatever. He was a Miami star. Man, check that stuff out. He went to the University of Miami, but he never started. He was never that great. He never was going to make it to the NFL. He wasn't trying to do something different than his father, maybe for a hot second, but then how are all these pictures of him as a little child and around all the wrestling stars, and where are all these videos and these interviews of him talking about he wanted to be a wrestler since he was young? Now all of a sudden it's changed and flipped. For whatever it is, what, $14 or $12, whatever it is, production? He a liar. Everybody's story the same when they get it. Oh, all of us just came out of nothing. Now these cats is rich. Or they taken care of. That's right, Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. He's a Rhodes Scholar. This guy ain't come out of nowhere. Hillary Clinton, we were warned about the persons that Hillary Clinton worked for as a lawyer. That anybody that came and represented or worked for that community, that Coretta Scott King told us that we should be careful of them, they're racists. Cover it. The Bible tells us that this is the name, this is the authority that this second beast is under. There's a cover-up. Everybody trying so hard to cover it up. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm trying to show you. I've given you a bunch of stuff. Research it. Look it up for yourself. It's not even exactly the way I thought we were going to go today. But that being said, we got the word. We received it. Now at this point, like, tell me if I'm lying. Show me if what I'm telling you is not there. Well, I don't know what Jay-Z got. Well, I'm not worried about Jay-Z or whatever right now. And I'm about out of time. We're supposed to end in like less than a minute, right? Officially. So, but look it up for yourself, right? Look it up for yourself, right? That's all I got for today. Tomorrow will be Q&A. We come through the prism of the kingdom of heaven, properly as far as culture is concerned. We're going to come through that prism, but we'll be here tomorrow on live session. If you guys want to join us, please make sure that you're on. For those who join us for Thursday Rise in Prayer, let's be on tomorrow. We'll make sure that we keep Dr. T and her family lifted up in prayer. We will have a meeting tomorrow. It's going to be kind of a brain dump. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on with SOC. So I'm just releasing a whole bunch of stuff. And we'll allow some questions from persons who are going to be coming for Passover. So we invite everybody to show up. Ministerial staff, we're going to have our ministerial staff meeting tomorrow as well. So everybody be ready. Look for the times. I'm having posted. But if I don't see you for Thursday Rise in Prayer or any of that other stuff, please, please, sir. Hopefully we'll see you in the live session tomorrow. Tomorrow and Friday we'll be doing Q&A. So we invite you all to be able to come on and listen to that and talk about what things we're doing. And whatever questions, comments, and concerns you guys may have, we'll go ahead and talk through those things. But I thank you all. I really appreciate you. I honor you. And look forward to what the Most High continues to do in your life. But we got to get ready to get on the road. We'll do a quick shout out. And I got to get ready to get on the road, make it back home, make it back to do some stuff with family. And then from there, have some honey-do stuff. So I'm going to be kind of busy on that. But thank you all. Appreciate you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your concerns. Thank you for being a part of what we do. If you'd like to be part of a shout out, if you'd like more information on what we do, you can join us on TikTok and just stick around for a little bit. Our shout out is a way where we make sure that we get some information out to you and also get some information from you if you would like us to. But you'll see exactly how that works in just a little bit if you don't mind just waiting a little bit for us to get to it. But Tadah, Maisha Bachin, we thank you so much. It'll be Q&A tomorrow at 8 a.m. New York City time. And we thank you so much for being on with us. As a reminder, too, we know for sure that date is locked in now, Georgia, March 21st. Hopefully we'll have a particular address for you all very soon as well. So, but we know for a fact that date is locked in, so we'll get that information out to you ASAP. Thank you, everybody. We want to also show some love, besides ordering calendars, doing stuff like that. And thank those who make clothing and stuff for us as well. We have Brother Dwayne wearing some of his product right now. Does great work as far as copper products and things of that nature. If you'd like to support him and his family. Got the pins, Sister Greta. This is one of the pins, but I don't have the keychains, the bigger keychains and stuff. But we're going to be figuring out how to move that stuff as well. Don't forget, so on March 18th is going to be our first day of the Hebrew calendar. New Year, we won't be doing anything on Zoom per se, but we'll have a special message for that. And that'll be March 18th in the evening. Starting March 25th or 24th, I think it's March 25th. Hold on, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, right? 31 days of March. So starting March 25th, we'll be having our 7 last words services. Those will be on the evening. We'll try to make sure that those are on live. It'll definitely be on YouTube. I'll try to see if I can have it on TikTok and YouTube for everybody, but it'll definitely be on YouTube. So prayerfully you guys will join us for that. And other than that, yeah, just keep each other in prayer. We're keeping Minister Elisha lifted up in prayer in her travels. Minister Yasaf in his prayer, as his Aishach is on the road, or his Isha is on the road. We respect the dialect from him. Isha is on the road. Thank you to everybody for being dynamic, for being awesome. And if you'd like to stick around once again for the shout out, we'll tell you how that works. If you'd like to come over to TikTok, if you're joining us, by the way, over from the podcast, IG, Clapper, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, watching this live, watching this later on, whatever the case might be. Tidach, I thank you. I appreciate you. We honor you. Have much respect given unto you. And thank you guys for allowing me to be in your life in some way, shape, or form. But thank you for allowing the Most High to permeate your life and be interwoven into the fabric of your societal values and allowing the kingdom to flourish and move and grow as He sees fit. So that's all that I have. Thank you again. I appreciate you. I honor you. Hope that you guys are doing well, and prayerfully you guys continue to do what the Most High has called you to, and anything I can do to help and be of service concerning that, that's what we're here for. So thank you all. We appreciate you. We honor you. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who doesn't like to say to be honored, to the ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie, Diner, everybody, to Dach, Maisha Pachi, Achaba, Achaba, Yachaba, Ban, Yachaba, and remember as always that you're loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearful and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, take care. Tada, again, thank you. Have a great day.